My entitled boyfriend literally refuses to use soap anytime he uses the bathroom or when he takes a shower, causing our shared living space to literally start smelling like garbage, all because he refuses to properly clean his body. But anytime I've confronted him about this, he claims that not using soap is a white person thing and that I should be more accepting of his decisions and not be so judgmental. But I'm honestly at a loss because this is disgusting and I simply can't get past the smell because I truly don't want to live like this and I don't know what else to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I feel ridiculous even asking this, but I honestly don't know if I'm missing something or if I'm being gaslit. Now, to start things off, I'm a black woman and my boyfriend is white. This is the first white man I've ever dated, which is relevant because I keep wondering if I'm misunderstanding something cultural. My boyfriend does not regularly use soap when he showers. He says he rinses with water and that soap is optional unless you're visibly dirty. He will sometimes use shampoo, but body soap is inconsistent at best. He also doesn't always use soap when washing his hands in the bathroom and says that hot water is enough. When I brought this up, he told me that I'm overreacting and that this is a white person thing and that I'm judging him through my own cultural lens. He said growing up his family didn't obsess over soap the way that mine did and that my expectations are based on how I was raised, not on what's medically necessary. He said that different ethnic groups get dirtier at different rates, so he does not need soap as often as I do. And this really threw me off. In my family and community, soap is not optional. You shower daily, you use soap, you wash your hands properly, you use a bar of soap to wash your butt. It's basic hygiene. I've never had to explain this to an adult partner before. The problem is that it affects shared spaces. Our towels smell bad, our sheets will smell faster than they should. I even question his bathroom and backdoor hygiene because sometimes even when we're close to each other, he smells really bad. He insists that I'm imagining it because according to him, black people are too uptight about using soap all the time and using washcloths. And he even makes fun of me for using a washcloth. I've had to rewash laundry because things just don't feel clean. And I feel uncomfortable inviting people over because I'm worried that the house smells off, even if he insists that I'm imagining it. When I push back, he says that I'm being judgmental and culturally insensitive, and that I need to stop projecting my standards onto him. He says that if I really understood him, I would realize this is normal where he comes from, and that I'm making it into a bigger issue than it needs to be. And now I'm stuck questioning myself. Is this actually a cultural difference that I should be more open-minded about, or is this just bad hygiene being dressed up as something deeper? I don't want to be unfair or ignorant, but I also don't want to live like this. I feel like his bad hygiene is negatively impacting my life, and I don't have any white female friends to ask about this. So am I overreacting by being bothered by this? Or is it reasonable to expect that soap is a non-negotiable in a shared home? What should I do? Oh my gosh, this guy's gaslighting you. This is not like a white person thing. This is more like a narcissist thing. Like, this guy's an idiot. You mean to tell me that this guy never uses soap like at all, whether he's using the bathroom or taking a shower? Like, I don't know about you, but either this guy has the greatest immune system known to man, or he is sick all the time because his hands are never clean, which also means that if you share any food with him, or if he makes you food or anything like that, chances are you're gonna be the one that gets sick. And that is absolutely disgusting. Like, there's no good excuse for this. And the fact that this guy's trying to be like, oh, this is a white person thing, it's cultural. It's like, bro, this is not cultural. This is you being a disgusting pig, gaslighting your girlfriend into being like, oh, you just have to deal with that. If you really understood me, you wouldn't be pushing for me to change. But it's like, I'm sorry, I can't get past the fact that you smell like actual crap. Like, I don't even know how to talk to you right now. I literally want to get out of the room because it's pretty obvious this guy is used to the smell and he doesn't realize that, yeah, he smells like garbage, like gross, sweaty, crappy garbage. And that is so gross, dude. Like, my God, dude, that gives me a shiver up my spine. I would never want to live like that. So in my opinion, I think the original poster here is absolutely being gaslit because nothing in this situation is anything that you would call normal. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by going hiking on a first date, resulting in one of the longest and most awkward situations I've ever been in my entire life. Here's what happened. So this happened actually on New Year's Eve, and honestly, it was kind of a fitting end to the year. So I matched with this beautiful woman on one of the apps, and somehow convinced her to come on a hike with me and my dog. Now, my dog is adorable. She will draw you right in with her big brown eyes and cute little eyebrows, but she also has an endless motor. She doesn't get tired and gets upset if we don't walk fast enough. And trust me, this is some serious foreshadowing. Now, the first mistake was deciding to meet in a nearby county park to avoid the fees. The second mistake was deciding to go down a 40-foot grade 3, maybe even grade 4 leafy hillside where she slid down 90% of it on her butt within like the first 20 minutes. We found out on the way back that we missed a small left turn about 50 yards before the hillside. We then spent the next 30 minutes engaging in a decent conversation, and I noticed that she's not asking me a ton of questions in return, but I just obviously chalk it up to her being nervous, like I'm a total idiot. Now, the third mistake was bringing my dog. She's adorable, but she can be an absolute hellhound. We weren't going fast enough for her liking, as I kept the pace slower than normal so I don't leave this poor girl behind in the woods. The dog even starts barking nonstop for what feels like an hour. Now, it wasn't, maybe like 10 minutes, but holy crap. Holding any kind of conversation with a pissed off 70-pound spoiled queen on the end of the leash was really painful. The fourth mistake, because why would you learn from your first, was to avoid paying to walk back into the park. We went back off trail, down another leafy hillside to a trail, and I asked her like 5 times if she wanted to, and she said it was fine. It wasn't as steep as the first one, but she slid down on her butt again for most of it. Oh, and she may have had an accident at this park in the past. Well, she said she just wanted to be friends when I asked for a second date, and eventually unmatched with me on the application. And with all things considered, I honestly cannot blame her for a second. Oh man, that's probably like the ultimate way of figuring out if you want to date someone or not. Just go on a hike in the woods, it's fine. If she can get past sliding down a hill on her butt twice in like one hike, then congratulations, she is the one. But if not, she's probably normal and she's probably like, oh my god, what kind of date have I signed up for? Because yeah, this is kind of a mess up, but it's also really funny. And I think if I was in the lady's shoes, I would probably not want to match up with you again because that is definitely not a good first impression. My friend has not heard from her boyfriend for over 5 months, and now the way she's acting is starting to affect her relationship with me and the other people in our group. And at this point, I'm really just not sure how to help her out. Here's the situation. Okay, so my friend and her boyfriend have been together for about 2 years, but recently he has stopped talking to her for apparently no reason. The last time my friend texted her boyfriend was about 5 months ago. She texted him about 6 times over the course of a few days, and he answered none of them. She has tried calling a few times, but she gets hit with his voicemail. And after all this time, she expects him to text or at least call him back. Well, I've told her countless times that this is not normal for a boyfriend to do, and that she should not be putting up with it for this long. Now, she doesn't get mad at me for bringing it up, but she does tell me, don't be so hard on him. He's just going through something. Well, my friend's anxiety has since gotten worse because of this, since she blames herself for him not texting. Ever since I've known her, she's done the same thing for other relationships or friendships where she will blame herself for someone else's actions. But this is the worst that I've ever seen yet. Our friend group is relatively close. Every time we all hang out together, she spends the whole time talking about her boyfriend. She asks over and over again what she could have possibly have done to upset him, even though we all tell her that this relationship is going nowhere and that we are all worried for her, but nothing we say actually gets through to her. I've even suggested that she talks to a therapist for her anxiety, but she does not want to. I think she's worried that a therapist will tell her to break up with her boyfriend, but she does not want to let go of the relationship because it's her first boyfriend. I honestly can't believe that it's gone on for this long. I feel like a horrible friend for knowing that this is happening, but she won't listen to my advice. I can't talk to her boyfriend about it or ask him what in the world he thinks he's doing because I've only met him once last year and he lives really far from me. So put yourself in my shoes. How do I even begin to approach this? I love my friend and I want her to be happy in any relationship she chooses, but this is definitely not good for her and I simply don't know how to help her. Okay, if your friend can't see that she doesn't have a boyfriend anymore, then I don't know if anyone's gonna get through to her. Because after 5 months of not responding to her, that's him ghosting the relationship and going to probably anybody else, which is awful. That really is a terrible way of breaking up, but maybe explaining to her that, yeah, this is him breaking up with you and you need to move on might be like the best thing for her to hear, because then it takes the pressure off of her. She doesn't have to be expected to like break up with him or figure anything out, because guess what? He's already done that to her. And yeah, this is gonna suck. I mean, it is her first relationship and she clearly wants to hold on to it, but dude, there's nothing to hold on to. If he's willing to ghost you for 5 months, then holy crap, he was not loyal and he did not care. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would tell her the truth and be like, dude, you gotta let it go, because this guy has shown a clear sign that he doesn't actually care about this lady, and he's obviously breaking up without actually confronting the situation itself, which really sucks, but at least it's something she can try to accept and move on from, because holding on to something that isn't there, in my opinion, is only gonna cause her harm. An entitled Karen bumps into me with her shopping cart, causing her to freak out in a way that honestly was completely overblown. Because not only does she deny any responsibility for hitting me, she also tried to claim that it was the other way around, saying that I'm the one that hit her and that apparently I need to apologize. Here's what happened. Okay, for reference, this happened a few weeks ago and I'm from Australia. I'm at the dip section of my local Colesworth supermarket and there are two middle-aged women just a couple of steps to my right. They are being somewhat obnoxious in positioning themselves, so they're hard to get around, and they're having this moment where they're like, oh, I haven't seen you in such a long time. But they're also not really stopping me, so I pay them no mind. I then step into the fridge to get a better look at the dips. One woman has a trolley, which would have been in my way, but she sees where I'm wanting to be and amazingly enough moves it, all of about 3 inches though. So I end up with virtually no gap between it and my hip. But it's the lead up before Christmas and I'm just trying to be calm about the entire thing. Also, importantly, the trolley ends up aimed directly at me. I pick out one dip and I start looking for a second one, and suddenly the woman's trolley hits me. Now it knocks into me gently, I mean there wouldn't be a bruise, because it was all of like 3 inches away, but on sheer reflex I bat it away with my hand. I do this all, by the way, at the force of like patting a cat, so the trolley moves back maybe 2 inches. Then what happens next comes into focus, because the Karen actually pushed her trolley straight into me. Now I'm incredibly surprised, so I turn to her expecting her to apologize, but of course not. She looks at me and says, "You hit me with that." And I'm thinking to myself, what? I say to her, "No, you pushed into me." She then says back, "You had already gotten what you wanted. I thought you were moving." But I answered back by saying, "Well, I didn't move, did I? So you pushed your trolley into me." And here, my voice is increasing in volume because this is some garbage. No one was hurt. The trolley had moved back gently 3 inches forward and back. But my God, she pushed it into me and thought I was to blame. The Karen's acquaintance is looking horrified at being caught in the middle of this and makes some attempt to calm us both down. But I'm not having it, and neither is this Karen. I mean, we've had a trolley pushed into us for God's sakes. We have a few more rounds of how each of us came to be pushing the trolley, but she won't show any scrap of remorse for pushing it into me and wants me to apologize for pushing it back into her. But it's like, screw you, Karen. If it hadn't hit me because of you pushing it into me, I wouldn't have touched it, you cow. This completely eludes the Karen who thinks I'm a horrible person for reflexively pushing back at something that got pushed into me. I think I hear her say something about her husband, and at this point I'm so riled up that I welcome the possibility. So I say to him, "Okay, go ahead, get your husband then." She then looks at me and says, "I don't have a husband." To which I snap back by saying, "Oh, that's not surprising." And yeah, this isn't my proudest moment, but I feel she deserves it. There's a few more back and forths, but eventually I've had enough. I've got a life I want to get on with. So I break contact and just walk away. But this Karen simply cannot let it go, of course, because she keeps going on and on at the top of her voice to her friend and random passing shoppers, saying, "Oh my God, he hit me with a trolley," all while I continue down other aisles to get the rest of my shopping. In fact, 5 aisles away, an elderly gentleman catches my eye. He lets out a chuckle and says, "She's still going, you know." So all in all, thanks a lot, Karen. I really didn't need this kind of interaction because this was simply exhausting. Okay, reactive personalities like this drive me crazy because she's freaking out over nothing. Literally nothing happened and she's trying to act like, "Oh my God, you hurt me. You hit me with your trolley on purpose. I can't believe you would do this." And it's like, bro, I didn't do anything to you. You're crazy. You're literally getting upset and pissed off at nothing. Like she almost came into that store kind of like hoping for some kind of negative interaction so that she could yell at someone just by being in the way. It's like, bro, people bump into each other all the time. It is not that big of a deal. Not to mention the fact that this was her fault. You were minding your own business and this lady bumps into you and then tries to act like it's your fault. Like, come on, get a life, bro. That is so weird. So I think the original poster handled this as well as anyone probably could in this situation, because that Karen's going to be unhinged pretty much no matter what you say. And it just sucks because you didn't want this and you definitely did not seek it out. Am I the jerk for leaving my boyfriend after he got pissed off that I came home from work and went right to sleep without cleaning up a huge mess that he made in the kitchen? Because now that I've left him, I'm kind of wondering if I made a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, my boyfriend is about 2 years older than me. We've been together for a while and I recently found out that I'm pregnant. Things have been rough lately and I finally hit my breaking point. I work in the ER doing 12 to 16 hour shifts. My boyfriend's got a warehouse job doing 40 hours a week, which I know is physically tough, so I've always tried to pull extra weight at home. I cook, I clean, I pack both of our lunches, and he basically just takes the trash out and tries to not leave toothpaste everywhere. The other day, I came home after a brutal shift, and the house was completely trashed. Water bottles and garbage on the floor, milk was left out on the countertop, dishes piled in the sink, and all of this on his day off. He also apparently had people over while I was gone, which I didn't even know about. I found him sleeping in our room like a little baby burrito, and I didn't say anything, so I just showered and I went to sleep in the guest bedroom, because I couldn't deal with it. Well, a few hours later, he wakes me up yelling about how lazy I am for just coming home and going to bed. And when he said this, I just completely lost it. I told him if he wanted the house clean, he should have cleaned up his own mess, and that I'm not his maid or his mother. He then said it's my duty as the woman of the house to keep things clean, and that he wished I was more like his mom because she did her job. Well, I told him that if he wants me to act like his mom, then he needs to act like his dad and actually provide. I said I'm the one paying most of the bills. I'm cooking every single meal. I'm cleaning everything, all while I'm pregnant too, by the way. I told him we're not even married and he's expecting me to play wife while he acts like a teenager. And that's when he said something that absolutely devastated me. He said, "This is why I haven't asked you to marry me." I then told him that if he was never planning to marry me, then we should just end it and stop wasting my time. I then packed my stuff up, I left, and I blocked him on everything. I also turned off all the location sharing stuff too. So am I the jerk in this scenario? Because I don't know what else to do. Okay, your boyfriend is super lazy. I'm just gonna say that first and foremost. You mean to tell me on his day off, while you're working your butt off and working in the emergency room, which by the way is an exhausting job and it is so difficult, he not only had friends over, but he also was too lazy to clean up after himself? Like, are you kidding me right now? And on top of that, he wakes you up and says, "Wow, why didn't you clean the kitchen?" Never mind the fact that you've worked a 12 to 16 hour shift. Like, what is this guy's problem? Like, there's no way you're the jerk. This guy is. Like, holy crap, you're pregnant and you're still working, and this guy's the one who made the mess in the first place, and yet you're the one who's expected to somehow clean up after him? Like, dude, get a life. So no, you're not the jerk. I would have done the same thing if I was in your shoes because he's acting weird and you do not need that in your life. My housemate wants to evict all of us, all because I accidentally left the front door open. Because right now, my roommate is freaking out on me, saying that he needs to rethink our living situation, all because of an honest mistake. And at this point, I really just don't know what else to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I live in one of the two iconic, affluent university towns in the United Kingdom, in a share house with two other people. We'll call them Jay and Adam for the sake of the story. Now, important context here. Before Christmas, Adam forgot to lock the back door one day. This was the first time something like this had happened in over a year that these two have lived together, and it's like, okay, it sucks, but it's an innocent mistake, and a lot of people make it, right? Well, wrong. Jay reacted very badly. He was angry and accusatory, and it went on for days. At some point, I had a chat with Jay, and he was convinced that Adam was either an alcoholic, high on some kind of substance, or has a brain tumor, not simply because it was like a mistake. Well, this morning, as I left for work through the front door, I closed the door behind me as I always do. However, I think the latch got stuck and didn't lock properly behind me. And for reference, we have one of those Yale auto lock ones on the front door. I was also in way too much of a hurry, so I didn't really double check. Thankfully, nothing was lost or damaged. But Jay found the door open shortly after when he woke up and texted the group chat. I felt really bad because I know it affected him a lot the last time, and I apologized several times. And I said I'll make sure to double check it from now on, but he went off. He kept saying, "Oh, this is insane," that my reaction and explanation is not acceptable, that he doesn't believe it was an accident, that he works with sensitive government information, and I've put him in a bad position, all while asking me what I can do so he believes that it'll never happen again. At some point, he says that we need to start rethinking the house share, and for reference, we're all sharing the rent, meaning that if we break the lease, everybody's gotta leave. Now, I kept apologizing and apologizing, trying to explain it really was an accident, that I didn't mean to leave the door open, the lock didn't lock properly, assuring that I will always double check it from now on. But nothing was good enough for him. He seems to think that I left it open on purpose, and I just don't know how else to explain that I also have valuables in the house, and I also don't want to leave the door open like it was an accident. I know it's still my responsibility, and I really am sorry, but would I be the jerk if I tell him he's overreacting? It's currently 10:30 at night where I'm at, and I'm still hanging out at the office because I'm genuinely kind of uncomfortable to go home. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, no, you're not the jerk because this is an insane reaction. If he's really got some kind of like government information that's really sensitive, then that's his responsibility to take care of it and not yours. He should have that under lock and key in a separate room. We're talking locked away in a safe, bro. Like, what are you doing? Any kind of documents or files or programs, like, dude, you better have that under lock and key, because if you're literally trying to take care of sensitive government information, all relying on a Yale auto lock, then my God, either your government is trusting the wrong people with sensitive information, or this guy is a complete moron, and he's using that as an excuse for his OCD tendencies. And I'm willing to guess it's probably the second option. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk. But if I was in your shoes, I would probably start looking for another place to live regardless, because living with someone who acts like that is honestly just a little crazy, and that is not something I would ever want to deal with. Am I the jerk for leaving my friend at the concert after he kept testing my boundaries all night? Because right now I feel like I made things weird by leaving all of a sudden, and I'm really just not sure if I made a mistake. Here's what happened. Okay, so last weekend I went to a concert with my friend who I will call Mark. We bought tickets months ago, and I was genuinely excited because I don't go out much anymore. Mark has been in this phase where he thinks he's hilarious if he pushes things just a little bit too far, like saying something rude and then smiling like you're supposed to laugh. Now I figured whatever, I can handle an annoying joke for a couple of hours, but the night turned into this huge thing. First he kept borrowing my stuff without asking, like my portable charger and even my card when we were buying drinks, and then acting offended when I asked for it back. Then he started trying to start conversations with random people by making me the punchline, like telling strangers I'm super uptight and that I need to be dragged out, which is not even true. I just don't like being talked about like I'm not standing there. I told him quietly twice, please stop doing that, but he said that I was just being sensitive and that I should just loosen up because everyone is in a good mood. Later on, we got closer to the front and it was crowded, and he kept shoving forward using my shoulder as leverage, like physically pushing me into people so he could squeeze through. People started giving me dirty looks and I felt mortified. I told him again, stop pushing me, I'm not doing this. But he laughed and said, oh, relax, it's a concert, not a library. Well, the final straw was when he spilled a drink down someone's back. It was an accident, but he didn't apologize. And when the guy turned around annoyed, Mark goes, oh, my friend did it, she's clumsy. And I swear my stomach dropped. I said, no, I did not. And I apologized to the guy myself. Mark then got mad at me for making it weird and said it was embarrassing him. At that point, I was done. I told him that I'm leaving and I'm going back to where there's space. And if he wants to keep acting like that, then he can enjoy the show alone. He then said that I was bluffing and followed me for a bit, still making little comments like, oh, someone woke up angry. Okay, mom, whatever. But I just turned around and I said, I'm going home. You can get your own ride. And then I just walked out. So I took a rideshare and I went home. And now he's telling people I abandoned him and that I ruined the night over jokes. I feel guilty because technically we came together, but I also feel like I gave him multiple chances and he just kept choosing to be a jerk and pin it on me. So am I at fault here? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. Okay, I need to say first and foremost, this guy is not your friend. He is a complete jerk and he used you as a prop to essentially make fun of you and make you look bad. And that is not okay. Like, that is not funny. It's humiliating, it's disgusting, and very disturbing. Especially the part where he's basically using you as a battering ram to get to the front of the concert. Like, bro, what is going on right now? You can't just touch people like that. That's weird. So no, you did the right thing because Mark was acting incredibly weird. My entitled grandmother hijacks my brother's cancer diagnosis and somehow makes the entire situation all about herself, as she constantly pulls the attention away from him in a way that is truly toxic and unsupportive. Here's what happened. Okay, so recently my older brother developed a strange lump in his neck. This had been a month-long ordeal, so I'm going to start at the beginning. Upon receiving this news, my brother's first reaction was just to call my mother and father, allowing them to spread the news if they wanted to. My mom told her mom so they could send him food, clothing, money, etc. Well, my entitled grandma, who is the subject of this story, didn't become aware of this until about a week or so after the initial acknowledgement of the possibility of cancer. And this was mostly because she wasn't going to do anything but pester everybody. She then proceeded to call my brother and yell at him for not telling her first, and how he's so selfish for keeping this diagnosis from her, a nurse. Now, I find this so stupid because she's a CNA, and no insults to CNAs, I mean, you guys are wonderful. And my family is a family of nurses and doctors. I mean, even my brother is going to medical school himself. Not to mention that her being a nurse does not entitle her to know information about something going on with us. We did not want to tell extended family yet because we weren't sure if it was cancerous or something else. We didn't want to create unnecessary worry. Throughout the month, she had been calling and texting him nonstop, and when he didn't respond, she would blow up my phone and my other brother's phone. Now, I don't live with my brother, and admittedly, I don't have much contact with him, so I don't know why she called me 45 times within 2 days. I had to block the number so I could get through school without my phone constantly buzzing in my pocket. She finally stopped when my dad stepped in and forced her to stop. Now, at this point, we hadn't heard much from her at the time, but unfortunately, this is where things really go south, as my grandma goes crazy in a way that I honestly never expected. Anyway, so we had to go to where my dad lives so he could have it removed. Insurance problems were the reason we couldn't stay in town, and it was just supposed to be my dad, my mom, and me. And I was mostly there for my mom because I didn't want her to be alone. When we let family know, she decided to call my brother up and demanded that we go to Mayo Rochester for a second opinion. But the thing is, we didn't even have the first opinion. in. All we knew is that the lump has been taken out. It hasn't even been biopsied yet or even sent to pathology, and she kept insulting the hospital we were going to and that Rochester was so much closer, but in fact it's a lot farther. We were going to Bell End, and this made my dad angry because he works at the hospital and also it's Bell End. My dad then calls her and tells her to shut up. Well, finally we got some silence, and we were hoping that that would be it, but of course it wasn't. The initial trip was going to be a 3.5-day trip. We would leave Tuesday night to the hospital and leave Friday afternoon. It was just going to be the 4 of us. However, in true fashion that only my grandmother can exude, she decided to butt into the situation once more. She announces on Facebook that she'll be going to her grandbaby surgery to be there for him and that they should pray for her and not him. We were also not aware she was coming until that announcement. A day before we had to leave, we sucked things up and tried to keep things nice and stress-free for my brother. When we arrived, it was smooth at first. The first night we got dinner and discussed plans for the next day. My brother had a CT at 9:15 and then a consult for surgery at 11:30. Afterwards, we were going to wander around the city and enjoy ourselves. The first part of our plans went well. We got up, got breakfast, and then went to the CT appointment. I was originally just going to meet my stepmother there, and we were going to go shopping and get some things for post-surgery. However, my entitled grandma met us at the hospital. At the first appointment, she began to demand to take my mom's spot in the appointment room, saying she had more of a right in that room because she knew more than my mom. And we're talking about my mom, you know, the mother of my brother. My brother then put his foot down before my mom could say anything in return to her, and that shut her up for a little bit. My grandma then pouted in the corner while my brother and my parents went into the appointment with him. The appointment took about an hour or so. My stepmom and I began getting ready to go shopping for a bit, catching up and deciding where to go. My grandma then steps in and demands us to stay or to invite her along, but we just deny, saying that we wanted it to just be us because I haven't seen my stepmom in a while. And then the conversation begins to change for the worse. She began to call me a disappointment for not thinking of my grandma and how I'm such an ungrateful brat. She said she would do anything to spend another moment with her grandmother and that you never know what's gonna happen. She may pass away all of a sudden. And then she started demanding why I didn't defend her and why I blocked her. Now, I'm gonna be honest. After years of mistreatment from this hag and the burnout of high school and the fact that it was 9 in the morning, I was not in a good mood. I replied in a short tone. I said to her, if you pass away right now, I couldn't care less. And then I turned on my heels with my stepmom and I went shopping. After the CT, we decided to go out as a family for a little bit and spend some time together until the next appointment. My grandmother then takes this opportunity to take control. She begins to direct us to places that she wants to go, places she thinks my brother would like, and she keeps asking my brother to buy her things. After all, this situation is just as hard on her as it is on my brother. I keep holding my tongue, simply guiding my brother away. My stepmom and I also double team my grandma whenever she starts pestering my brother over the smallest things, like why she wasn't allowed in the appointment. We separate them quickly and end the conversation from the beginning. Finally, it comes to the second appointment and we go. Instead of shopping, I decided to spend the appointment time doing schoolwork since I was missing a few days, not to mention that I was just so emotionally strained from trying to parent my grandmother. Well, eventually, my entitled grandmother started pestering me again, and this time she was a bit nicer, asking me about school and all this other stuff. I then began talking to her about my plans for my senior year and plans after college. She then began to try and tell me what I should do with my life, saying I should follow in my father's footsteps, I should become a respiratory therapist, or better yet, I should become a CNA like her. But I said no, and that I planned to either become a psychologist or a physical therapist, and that was final. Well, she pouts for a little bit and then starts telling me about classes I should take for my senior year, and that my senior year would be too hard for me. She says that sometimes I'm a bit slow and may not be able to handle calculus and physics at the same time, but I bit my tongue a bit and I just ignored her. But then she got angry at me for ignoring her. I honestly wish I had some witty things to say to her, but all I could muster was, well, this is why no one wants you around. And thankfully, that shut her up for just a little bit. Finally, lunchtime came around and we went out. And this was my brother's choice, of course. But my entitled grandma began to complain about the choice of restaurant and how Cancun was trashy and the food wasn't good. When we arrive, she then begins to try and tell us what to order. Now, we ignore her, of course. However, when she heard that I ordered enchiladas, she began on her wonderful tirade. She began to talk to me about how I should watch my cholesterol and my weight, and she then said, you know, a fat physical therapist is a bad physical therapist. After she said that, I stared her for a little bit before I simply moved seats, essentially leaving her alone at the end of the table. When the waiter comes over to get our orders, she then tries to change my order into a salad, saying that I don't need all of those carbs, but I'm in bulk right now and I want my carbs. My mom stepped in and simply told her to shut up. My entitled grandma was most likely going to protest, but my dad gave her the glare of doom and she finally shut up. She remained quiet and was pouting until it was time to go back to the hotels and get some sleep. My entitled grandma began to pester me again to stay with her at the hotel, but I wasn't going to. I didn't plan on it and I did not want my mom alone. So I set my foot down, saying I wasn't going anywhere with her. She then proceeded to grab my arm and tried to drag me away, saying that I was a brat and should listen to my elders. But I simply pulled my arms out and called her a complete hag that should learn when someone wants her to go away. After that, I went back to the hotel and I went to bed. The next day, we learned that she went home because apparently she knows that she's not wanted, which is honestly really doubtful. She also sent all of us a long string of text messages telling us how she was so disappointed in all of us for not respecting her and just being so mean. She apparently was so stressed out with the possibility of my brother having cancer, and she just wanted to spend this time with her family. But you know what? I just ignored her. The rest of the trip went well, and my brother's surgery went well. Luckily, it was benign, and now he has a wicked scar from surgery. And even to this day, I still have my entitled grandma blocked because she is truly one of the worst people that I've ever known. Man, imagine being so entitled that you go to someone else's cancer diagnosis and somehow make it about yourself. Like seriously, can she not read the room? Now is not the time to be selfish and be like, oh, it's all about me. How dare you not take everything I say as gospel? It's like, lady, you try to take the mom spot in the appointment room and you're trying to like dictate everything about this trip while also insulting everybody around you. Did you really think anybody would want anything to do with you after this? So truly good for you and the rest of your family for shutting this lady down because her behavior was absolutely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My roommate has feelings for my boyfriend in a way that is truly trying to like ruin my relationship, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old college senior living with a few roommates, including someone who we will call Cherry. She's sweet but super socially awkward, and we mostly got along fine. That is, until my boyfriend entered the picture. We are long distance, so he visits every other weekend, and at first, Cherry barely acknowledged him. But then he carried her groceries one time, and then suddenly she was all in. It started off small. She would hang out with us in the living room, ask when he was visiting next, and even seem more upset than me when he couldn't come over for 3 weeks. But then it escalated. She would interrupt our dates, force her way into our plans, and constantly ask him to fix things in her room. One time, I gave him a Nintendo Switch, and she insisted that we play it in the living room instead of my bedroom. Another time, we were cooking a romantic dinner, and she plopped down at the kitchen table to do homework. Now, the worst part about all of this is that she started showing up unannounced at places we mentioned going to. Valentine's Day, for example, was a disaster. She saw me dressed up, threw a dramatic fit about being dumped, and guilt-tripped us into consoling her instead of going out. Oh, and by the way, she's been asking me super personal questions about my relationship, like she's auditioning for a role in it. But here's the real kicker. I overheard her crying on the phone the other day, confessing her love for my boyfriend. She talked about taking photos of him, daydreaming about him, and how unfair it is that ugly girls get happy endings. She even went on a concerning rant about feeling depressed and hinting that she might be having some dark thoughts, if you know what I mean. I'm stuck living with her for 3 more months, and I'm worried her behavior will escalate. How do I shut this down without making things worse? What should I do? Oh man, I absolutely cannot imagine being in that scenario. Here you are just trying to like live out your senior days of college, and now your roommate is suddenly jumping in and being like, oh, I love your boyfriend. Ugly girls get the better endings. This is so unfair. Like if I was in your shoes, I would be like, okay, my boyfriend is never coming over again, and we're gonna ride out these 3 months until I can find a new place to live. Because seriously, what is happening right now? Cherry's behavior is so uncalled for. She's clearly going through some hard times, and she's now latched onto your boyfriend because he showed any semblance of like kindness towards her. And that is definitely not fair. Like that really is something that you do not deserve to deal with. So yeah, hopefully like an information diet or even like keeping your boyfriend away from her from now on will take this idea out of her head where she's like, oh yeah, maybe I have a chance with him. Because this situation really sucks and you don't deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for taking a job that my friend was fired from? Because right now they are very pissed off at me, saying that I'm making a massive mistake. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I lost my job last month and applied for a manager position at a local coffee shop. It pays well, is super close to my house, which is essential since I don't drive, and it's a leadership role. So overall, a great opportunity for me. Well, the only issue is that my friend used to work there and was fired about a year ago. She told me not to take the job, saying it would destroy my mental health and that I would definitely get fired as well. But here's the thing. I used to work with this friend at another store where we met, and she was an awful employee. She had a bad attitude, she was rude to staff, she thought she was better than everyone, and she lacked basic skills. And this is also the third job she's been fired from. Our friendship is honestly really toxic. I've tried to distance myself multiple times, but she love bombs me, and I'm an autistic people pleaser, so somehow I'm now the maid of honor at her upcoming wedding. But that's an entirely different thread altogether. I've been at this job for a week now, and I love it. The team is great, super supportive, and the location is ridiculously convenient. I'm someone who gets along with people and does my job efficiently, so I don't usually have work conflicts unlike my friend. At this point, she's now mad at me for taking the job and keeps saying that I made a mistake. So truly, am I the jerk for ignoring her warnings and taking the job anyways? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Now, you didn't do anything wrong, and I don't think you're the jerk, because it just sounds like your friend is super salty because they got fired and you're somehow thriving even though it's only a weekend. Like, think about it for a second. Why would you ever take the advice of someone who got fired from a job when they themselves, like you already know, are probably not a good employee in the first place? So of course they're gonna have a bad opinion about a place they left. And by the way, they left because they got fired. And this is not the first time they got fired. Like, this is not someone who knows what they're talking about. So no, you're not the jerk for taking the job because they have literally not worked there for over a year. Like, the entire staffing situation could have changed between now and then. And in my opinion, I would say stick with a job and forget whatever your friend has to say, because clearly they have a jaded opinion about that entire establishment. Am I the jerk for not cleaning the kitchen, despite the fact that my partner agreed to help out with chores and is also working late, which is preventing him from doing his share? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner and I live together in a home that I recently purchased last year. I put all of my savings into the home and pay 100% of the mortgage every month. We split bills 50-50, including groceries, and my partner is in the process of gaining permanent residency. It's a complicated family situation, but essentially his entire family is here, but he is not a citizen. He's also started within the past year of his own commercial flooring business, and he doesn't get enough jobs to sustain his income full-time with his business. So he often does random labor subcontracting work, but as a result, I make a bit more money than him. Anyways, given all of this, I decided I wouldn't charge him any rent, since the house is in my name anyways. But the one agreement that we had was that he would help me out with any household chores. We are both trying to save money, so we try to eat out as little as possible. Every night I come home from work and I cook a nice dinner, and he stacks the dishwasher and washes the pots and chopping boards that can't go into the dishwasher, and I feel like this is an even share in workload. But recently, over the past couple of weeks, he's been coming home pretty late, like around 9 o'clock p.m. I still cook dinner for him and I wait for him to come, but this week he's told me he's too exhausted to clean, which is fair enough. But the issue is that I don't want to have to come home from my job, spend an hour cleaning the kitchen, and then another hour cooking. I need time after work to debrief and relax. So today I called him and I told him I was just gonna get takeaway for dinner. He then got really awful towards me and made a comment about how we were supposed to be saving money. But I told him that I was tired and I couldn't clean and then cook and then clean again. He was kind of like, well, I'm working late, why can't you just do it? And I don't know, maybe I should have been more polite and just clean the kitchen when he's working late, but it kind of bugs me because he's choosing to work late. I've told him time and time again to just get a full-time job so he's not constantly stressed about finding work for his business and doing subcontracting work that runs late. But he told me he doesn't want to kiss anyone's butt and that he works well under his own direction. But in my opinion, that's life. I work under authority at my job and I deal with it in exchange for a consistent paycheck. Also, I don't think it's fair that I'm sacrificing my time so that he gets to earn more money for himself. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. I don't think you're the jerk because honestly, he really needs to step up when it comes to cleaning. I totally understand that he's working late, but at the end of the day, that really has to be something he needs to step up on. Because right now, in my opinion, I kind of think he's being selfish. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my nephew's college tuition, even though I paid for my cousin's dog's medical fees? Because right now, my brother and his wife are bad-mouthing me to the entire family, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my cousin's dog got really sick, and the cost to treat her is very, very expensive. I love dogs, and I love her dog in particular, and I love her, so I paid for it for her in full. But now, my brother and his wife want me to help them pay for my nephew's college fund. I could help pay for it easily, but I refused. I don't like my nephew. I don't like his mom, and I'm indifferent towards my brother. We don't have the closest relationship, but at least we are cordial. Plus, it's not like they can't afford it. They go on multiple overseas trips a year, but if they pay for it themselves, house, they won't be able to afford other things, like their shopping sprees of brand name bags. They'll have to downgrade their life a little, and they're not happy about it. But to me, it's just a normal part of life. Like, people save all the time for college, even if it means they can't afford to go to Disney this year. They think it's unfair because my cousin could have afforded her dog's treatment all on her own easily. She is in a better financial state than them, but apparently they can't afford their son's college fees easily. They are now bad-mouthing me to everyone, claiming that I'm favoring a dog over my nephew, which is, and I'm not gonna lie, sort of true. They think I'm out of touch because I don't think it's a big deal for them to not go on multiple luxury vacations a year just to afford their son's tuition. They think that because it's my brother and blood family, I need to help them out, especially since they think it's easy for me to do. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to help pay for my nephew's college, even though I totally could? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This honestly is so weird. Your brother and his wife are clearly spending their money wrong, and they saw that you spent money on your cousin, so they're like, oh yeah, you can pay for our son's college. And it's like, hold on, wait a second, why did you get sucked into all of this? Just because you paid for medical fees for a dog doesn't suddenly mean that you're open to paying for everybody else's problems in the family. I mean, never mind the fact that your brother and his wife are like financially irresponsible. They're doing all these trips and buying all these things, and yet they're trying to be like, oh, can you pay for the college? And it's like, no, are you kidding me right now? Why would I pay for something that you guys can obviously do yourself, but instead you're choosing to spend all that money on stuff that you don't need? Like, this legitimately sounds like a them problem and not a you problem. And you know what? If they want to badmouth you, then you can turn that right back on them and be like, okay, well, why don't you pay for stuff for your son? Why are you, a relative, somehow responsible for this kid's education? Shouldn't that fall on the mom and dad? Like, are you kidding me right now? So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and the fact that they're trying to guilt trip you is incredibly weird. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would not put up with that for a single second. Am I the jerk for being frustrated that my sister-in-law is overstaying her welcome and my husband won't enforce any kind of boundary? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, so my 18-year-old sister-in-law is on spring break and staying with me and my husband. We share an apartment with my brother-in-law, but my husband, my brother-in-law, and myself all split the rent equally. It's not owned by my brother-in-law. Before my brother-in-law left for work, my husband asked if his sister could stay, and I suggested a compromise. She would stay half the week and then we would take her home. And you know what? He agreed to do this. When the time came, my husband told her and she just laughed it off. Later, when I wasn't around, she convinced him to let her stay. Now, what was his excuse, you might be wondering? He said to me that his brother said that she could stay the whole week. But here's the thing, my brother-in-law isn't even here. We are the ones dealing with it. She takes up space, invites herself on our date nights, and I can't even fully relax in my own home. Now, this isn't new. 2 months before college, she basically moved in without me knowing until days before. And you know what? I was extremely accommodating. I included her in everything and even planned her birthday. When she finally moved to her dorm, my husband and I agreed that we wouldn't pick her up for the first week to get some alone time. She then called crying with her mom, and they convinced him to pick her up. My husband excused it by saying, oh, she's just homesick. But my issue is that she'll never actually fit into college life if she keeps running back here. When I was in college, I stayed in my dorm, hung out with my friends, and partied, and she's not even trying to adjust. Later, I had a direct conversation with her, making it clear my issue wasn't her visiting, just that I needed alone time. She promised I could always tell her when I did not want her over. But weeks later, when I told her no for a weekend, my husband backed me up and told her no. She then got my brother-in-law to pick her up instead. When she arrived, she said hello to everyone except for me and ignored me until I said hello first. Then she stood right next to me and started speaking in Spanish about something directly related to me. Now, with this situation, my husband admitted that he didn't want to push back because my brother-in-law can be difficult sometimes. He said that if we sent my sister-in-law home, my brother-in-law would make a big deal about how he can have whoever he wants in his room since he pays rent. And if we tried to enforce limits, my brother-in-law would reiterate by saying he'll only pay rent for the time he's actually here. I told my husband I won't be around them the rest of the week because I'm too irritated. I don't want to be rude, but I feel disrespected and very frustrated. So, am I the jerk for wanting my sister-in-law to leave after the agreed upon time and stepping back since my husband won't set boundaries? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, not only are you not the jerk, but also I would highly consider moving out. It's obvious that your husband is not going to be on your side, and if anything, he's always going to appeal to his brother, his sister, and his mom. And that really is not fair for you because you have to deal with all of this garbage and it's all at your expense. So yeah, in my opinion, I think moving out might be the best option because I know if I was in your shoes, that's the first thing I would even think of doing before ever approaching anyone ever again. My entitled brother-in-law wakes me up from a nap, demands demanding that I make him dinner, stating that as long as me and my family are staying in his house temporarily, then I need to be in the kitchen just like his wife, making him dinner whenever he wants. And I'm honestly blown away by this situation, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband, who we will call Tom, as well as our 2 sons, were recently in a house fire and lost our home, but luckily we were all out of the house when this happened. Tom's brother, who we will call Sean, as well as his wife, agreed to let us stay at his place with their kids while we sort out insurance. Now, I don't like Sean, as he believes in traditional gender roles in his household. We have had issues ever since he realized I would keep my maiden name at work, which I informed him was none of his business, and it was my personal choice. He works full-time and his wife is a housewife. When we had our sons, Sean thought that I would quit my job as a doctor and become a stay-at-home mom. However, Tom became a stay-at-home dad instead, and then went back to work after our son went to school, and doesn't share the same thought process as Sean. Sean clearly disapproves of this and me, and he vocalized his thoughts about the situation. I got Tom to speak to Sean, and he has left us alone ever since then, but occasionally used to make comments at holidays and birthdays, about which I just completely ignore. They stopped when Tom returned to work, and since then, Tom says that Sean has grown as a person. Tom and Sean are very close, and I would never tell him to stop talking to him, but I personally interact as little as possible with Sean. My son's school and Tom's workplace is walking distance from Sean's house, which is why I agreed to stay, and suck it up while we get back on our feet as it is temporary. Yesterday was a very hectic day at work, and I was exhausted. My shift ended midday, and I went straight to bed. Everyone was out of the house, and Sean and Tom went to work. The kids were at school, and Sean's wife went to see a friend. Well, Sean got home first, and he woke me up. Now, I was upset and still tired, and when I asked him why, he said to me that I should start making dinner as it was getting late, and his wife was out and not picking up her phone. Usually, I do the cooking in the house with his wife, but I was upset that Sean had woken me up, and I yelled at him to not disturb me. I then kicked him out of the room, and I told him I was going back to sleep and he could sort out his own dinner. When I woke up that evening, Sean told me that while I was under his house, I need to respect his house rules. I told him he could have cooked for himself, he'd had leftovers in the fridge, or gotten takeaway. Now, Tom thinks that Sean did overstep by waking me up and making demands, but I shouldn't have yelled and escalated the situation. So honestly, at this point, I'm incredibly pissed off and frustrated, and I really don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to this situation. Here's what they had to say. Okay, to start things out, I didn't expect so many responses, and I have read quite a few of them. I spoke to a friend who said that we are welcome at her place. I told my husband I was leaving with the kids, and he was welcome to join me or stay at Sean's house. My brother-in-law didn't tell my husband the whole story and said I just flat out refused to cook, and then yelled at him out of tiredness when one of the conditions on us staying was that we would cook and help out around the house. I was upset that my husband believed Sean, but he also didn't have the full story. In our culture, we place a big emphasis on respecting elders, and I know I feel uncomfortable opposing elder relatives on my side of the family, so I get why my husband does struggle. This experience has made me put my foot down though, and I've told my husband I don't want our sons anywhere near him. I think this has also been an eye-opener for my husband, and he has agreed to move out with me, although my brother-in-law asked him to stay. When we get our place sorted out, only my sister-in-law and my kids' cousins will be allowed over. My sister-in-law has called to apologize for my brother-in-law's behavior, but here's the thing, I have not heard from him at all. He was silent to me and only talked to my husband and the kids. I agreed to move in with my brother-in-law as I believed that he had changed in his beliefs, and it had been a few years since our last fight, but apparently not. Also, the house belonged to my husband's late parents, and he owns half of it. Also, with our insurance, they have finally ruled the fire as a faulty electrical situation in the kitchen, so we will get a place of our own by Friday. But regardless, I hope I never deal with my brother-in-law ever again, because what he did to me was absolutely uncalled for. Holy crap, that guy is such an awful person. Sean literally walked over to the original poster and said, "Hey, while you're in my house, you need to cook in the kitchen." Basically saying, oh yeah, women belong in the kitchen while you're under my roof. It's like, dude, what are you doing? If you want to try that crap with your wife, I guess go for it, even though I think it's wrong. But to do that crap to somebody else's wife under the guise of, oh, if you're under my house, you have to follow my rules. Like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about, but that is not gonna happen. You can't boss someone around and like take away their autonomy, all because you're hungry and you want dinner. Who's gonna make my dinner now? It's like, dude, what are you talking about right now? Order a pizza, heat up some leftovers, cook for yourself, do something. Don't drag a guest in your house into this and be like, oh, if you're gonna be in my house, you gotta follow the rules. And it's like, your rules are super sexist. What are you talking about? Oh, okay, so you make the women cook for you? What are you, like 12 years old? So yeah, this whole scenario is so messed up, it's not even funny. But I'm honestly super glad the original poster put this guy in his place, because him not only saying this to you, but also trying trying to lie about it, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would never deal with this guy ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I kicked a client out the door of my store because he came in 5 minutes before closing and tried to ask 1,000 questions before we were done for the day. But I truly was not willing to deal with that, and so I asked him to leave. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a copy center, and we print documents and photos. And at 9:54 p.m., a guy came in to print business cards. First of all, why in the world is he here 5 minutes before closing? Secondly, he came in with something that can't be solved in 5 minutes because A, it's just business cards, and B, he started asking a bunch of stupid follow-up questions, meaning he had no idea what he needed. You're probably guessing that business cards are printed and sliced on a machine in large runs, and it's not done in a regular office with a Xerox machine. Even if it isn't true, that's fine, because you likely listen politely to my explanation, realize you won't get the results you want now, and go home afterwards. Well, he didn't go home, but continued to ask if it was possible to print on a regular sheet of paper right now. Now I, knowing the tricks of Xerox, said that no, double-sided printing of business cards will not work, and the color will definitely not be the same. He continued to insist that he needed these stupid business cards and asked how long it would take me to adjust this layout, to which he received a direct answer: none. I will not be doing it, especially now. But even after that, he did not calm down and asked to make him at least one-sided. To finally make him go away, I even printed him a couple of sheets of his business cards on plain paper. Now let me clarify, I don't mind getting into a person's situation if they urgently need to do something, or even just to help them out even if my working hours are over, but this one came with a blissful smile and a pile of questions, not giving a single care about the fact that it was not my working hours. What really got me was when he started asking irrelevant questions, stuff like, where did you go to college? And again, nothing wrong with small talk, but not at 10 o'clock p.m. I realize he's a total jerk, and at this pace he's going to sit here until he's tongue-tied or ends up staying to hit on me. I asked him if he would like to take these papers, which by the way, of course he didn't like the color, and he said no. So I just pointed to the door with a straight hand and I said goodbye. And I honestly hope I don't deal with that guy ever again. I love this story for a few reasons, but the biggest one is the fact that you decided, no, I'm not gonna stay here past hours and deal with your garbage. So that means you either have really good managers who let you kind of like function on your own, or you just don't care and you're like, look, I'm not dealing with this. Because both sides of this coin are awesome, and I love this about this story. Because I've been in situations where I have managers who are like, no, you have to stay and help them out. And it's like, dude, it's 10 o'clock at night. Are you kidding me right now? I want to go home. But the fact that you told this guy, okay, take a hike and leave, I cannot help you right now, that is hilarious to me, and it's very well deserved. And I personally have the same attitude as the original poster. If there really is some kind of like emergency and they need these business cards like right away, then sure, you help them out and you get it done. But I think this guy was literally just wasting everybody's time, and that is super annoying. So good for you for getting this done, because if I was in your shoes, I would have tried to do the exact same thing. I pay my brother $100,000 a year while also giving him the freedom to choose his own hours and do his work at his own pace. But even still, he constantly complains, leaving me in a position where I am literally questioning everything. Here's what happened. So I spent the last 7 years building my business to support myself initially, and now my brother. He has had a lot of mental health struggles in his 20s, but he pushed through it. He left a stable white-collar job he hated and started a $12 an hour retail gig right before the pandemic. He got furloughed, and I happened to get a call for a dream job I couldn't refuse. And I spent the next 3 months between training my brother and onboarding for this new company. 4 years later, and it didn't work out, and we are working together again. Now, you would think he would be grateful, but I wouldn't be posting here if he was, now would I? He makes $100,000 a year doing work that should take 6 hours a day at max. Now, I don't tell him when to work, I don't restrict his time off, and he chooses what orders he wants to accept or reject. He has the ability to make $150,000 a year if he wanted to put in a full day's work. Now, sounds great, right? Well, no, that's wrong. He constantly complains. He has to respond to client inquiries from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. But because he's so busy, he needs my help, despite the fact that I already answer all messages outside of business hours and on weekends. If he sees that a message hasn't been responded to in an hour, and I said I was helping that day, he berates me for not communicating that I'm online and accuses me of not doing my job. He constantly tells me that I don't care about the business. All the while, I'm literally completing double his workload, covering 3 times more hours of client chats. He has told me I need to tell him if I'm not going to be available and when I'm going to be offline, even though my schedule has zero impact on his responsibilities or his expectations as an employee. I'm really frustrated. I'm feeling like the actual roles here are reversed, and in reality, he's just a super entitled entitled brat. What should I do? Wow, your brother gets paid $100,000 a year and he wants to sit there and complain? Not to mention the fact that he could be making more money if he put in a full days of work. Like, this guy just sounds straight up lazy. Like, I'm sorry, that is so unbelievably toxic. So I know if I was the owner of this company and I had a brother working like this, I would tell him straight up, listen, if you don't like what's going on, or if you can't handle your job, then please, by all means, find something else. Like, I know plenty of people who would love to have a job like that, where they set their own hours, they're not being micromanaged, and they can make 6 figures in a year. Like, are you serious right now? That's a dream. Not to mention the fact that he can make more money than his like standard paycheck. So yeah, hopefully your brother sees the light of day and realizes that he has a dream job right now, because he can either get it together and figure his life out, or he could easily find himself getting fired from this job. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not giving a Karen customer the sandwich that she deserved? Because this lady literally complained over nothing, and I'm honestly wondering if I'm gonna have a job at the end of the day. Here's what happened. So I work at a small family-owned deli. It's a cozy spot and we pride ourselves on good food and good service. One day during the lunch rush, a woman, who I will refer to as Karen, comes in with her kid. She immediately starts inspecting the sandwiches on the counter like she's at a museum. But honestly, whatever. I'm used to picky customers, so this isn't unusual. She orders a turkey sandwich, but when I ask if she wants it toasted, she snaps at me and says, no, I don't want it toasted. I want it fresh, not burnt. I assure her that our bread is always fresh, and we don't toast unless specifically asked for it. She's calm for a second, but then she eyes the deli meats and says, I want my turkey sliced thinner, like really thin. Is that too much to ask? I look at her a little surprised because our turkey is already sliced pretty thin, but I nod and I tell her I'll pass the request along to the slicer. I wrap up the sandwich and I hand it to her, but then she suddenly starts waving her hands dramatically. This is not what I asked for, she exclaims, causing the entire line of customers to turn and look. Now I'm just standing there thinking, what could possibly be wrong? She then points at the sandwich. This turkey is way too thick. Do you not know how to make a sandwich? Now at this point, I'm trying to stay professional, but I can't help but feel a little frustrated. I know the turkey isn't thick, but I ask her, would you like me to remake it with thinner slices? She then lets out a huff. No, I want to talk to your manager. This is ridiculous. So I go to the back and I tell my manager, who's already heard the whole ordeal. She then walks out to confront this Karen. She then starts screaming, this is terrible customer service. I should be getting the best sandwich of my life for what I paid for. Now my manager is super chill, but when Karen starts yelling, my manager just nods and calmly says, I'm sorry you're upset. We can remake your sandwich or refund you. Which would you prefer? The Karen's face then turns red. I want a refund, and I'm telling all my friends about how bad this place is. You don't know how to make a sandwich. I want your store shut down. My manager doesn't even flinch. She gives the Karen her full refund and says, I'm sorry we couldn't meet your expectations, and I hope you find a place that better suits you. As the Karen storms out, I hear muttering, I'm going to make sure this place never survives. Now the best part about this is that one of the regulars who had been watching the whole scene said to me, hey, don't worry kid, you can't please everybody. Some people just need a good sandwich to chew on instead of drama. And after they said that, we all had a really good laugh, and it definitely lightened the mood. Honestly, it was one of those days where I just had to remind myself that not everyone gets their way, and sometimes people just need a moment to be heard, even if it's over a sandwich. Yeah, I've dealt with people like this before, and honestly, it is so weird. It's almost like they want to be upset over something, and it's like, okay, I guess if I'm the person to get yelled at, go for it. It's never fair, and it's never something you want to deal with, but the Karen in this story kind of fits that bill. So good for you for the way you handled it, because you honestly didn't do anything wrong. Am I the jerk for watching my best friend's favorite show after she told me all about it and then told me not to watch it? Here's what happened. Okay, so I want to watch my best friend's favorite show at the moment after she kept talking to me about it, and I eventually decided that I wanted to check it out. When I told her I wanted to, she told me not to, as she likes to keep her favorite things private to her so they feel more special and personal, and so I don't potentially criticize them, because she says any criticism will ruin it for her. And as a side note, I have a long history of being a bit heavy-handed with criticizing, to be completely honest, but I'm a lot better now than I used to be. For a bit more context, me and my friend are pretty much each other's only friends, just because we're both fairly weird and kind of socially awkward, and just don't go out and meet new people much, and both have a fair share of flaws which we don't mind about each other, and as a result have been friends for about 6 years. We both like anime and talk about it quite a lot, and she's been talking to me about this new one for a couple of months, all the way to the point where I wanted to go watch it and see if I'd like it as well. My friend has a weird thing, however, that she likes to keep her most favorite things personal to herself, so that they feel more unique and special for her, which I'm normally fine with, as we'll still talk and yap about them anyways, even if I haven't seen them. This show is one of these things that she likes to keep personal, and yet we still keep on talking about it, and she shows me clips since I'm the only person that she can really share them with. Eventually, all of this has convinced me to watch it, but she's always insisting that I don't, and we've been through this specific specific debate a couple of times now, but we still keep yapping about the show happily anyways. Despite that, I have started to watch it, as I don't really want to let her just gatekeep it from me, and generally, I don't think media or culture is something that should be kept behind any bars. It's also not even about embarrassment either, as she never would have talked to me about it so much, and from everything I've seen of it so far, it's completely fine considering how well we know each other. I probably won't ever tell her I've watched it at all, as I know that she'll get upset by it, having known her for like 6 years now, and it'll be this whole ordeal that will just be a pain and mean nothing eventually. This is the only time it's really come to me actually wanting to watch, and her wanting to gatekeep, and the only thing I'm really curious about is if other people think that I'm being a jerk by not listening to her, or if she's just gatekeeping the show and I shouldn't care about it. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I really don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think everybody sucks in this story. The fact that the friend is trying to gatekeep the show, in my opinion, is really weird, but also it sounds like the original poster is really annoying about anything that they're shown. They're probably super obnoxious about their criticism about everything, and they kind of like kill the vibe when it comes to anything that someone else might enjoy. So to that end, I can't blame your friend for being like, no, please don't watch it. This is like the one good thing I have left that you haven't touched. But that also doesn't excuse your friend from like really gatekeeping this and being like, no, you're not allowed to watch this. Like both of the people in this story really need to like figure their lives out, because this is not normal behavior. So yeah, in my opinion, I think everybody sucks in this story. My entitled mother wants me to come back home and take care of her, despite the fact that she's treated me poorly my entire life. Here's what happened. So my mother, who adopted me when I was 6 years old, emotionally mistreated me and neglected me throughout my childhood. Most of my memories are filled with babysitters while she was living it up, school bullying, and therapist, while she refused to believe that any of my problems stem from my relationship with her. I've been slowly working through my issues with a therapist, and now live several hours away from her, and I work a full-time job as a news producer. As my mother has grown older, she's now become a shell of who she used to be. She is now a hermit, she does nothing, she loves being the victim, and she is condescending and very judgmental. She has an abundance of loyal friends who think she's a godsend, but all know there's something not quite right about her. On Sunday, I had to call 911 for her because she said she was feeling dizzy and had the sweats. After testing at the hospital, they found that she had a small ulcer that had caused minor bleeding. I've been in communication with the hospital this entire time, and her best friend of over 36 years, who lives about an hour away, was able to drive down to be with her. The ulcer has since been attributed to stress, bad dieting, and lack of exercise. Her friends and I have talked to her about this so many times, I honestly just don't even bother anymore. Aside from some discomfort, the hospital has her on an IV and will send her home with a prescription after an evaluation. When I spoke to my mother on the phone, she was very frustrated and complained about the situation. She also doesn't seem to understand that she's actually improving and said she wished that I could be there. Her friend also mentioned that my mother is adamant that she's not going home until she feels 100%, even if the doctor tells her that she can go home. But feeling 100% is unrealistic, especially at that age. Her friend told me that my mother needs to push herself more instead of just sitting around and waiting to feel 100% better. Her friend's doing as much as she can for my mother, but she can only stay until next Monday. My mother is perfectly mobile, and aside from this blip, she is in much better shape than a lot of people her age, and she absolutely could still eat better and be more active. If she fails the evaluation, then the hospital can suggest a rehabilitation clinic for her to go to. She also has several neighbors who are more than happy and have helped a great deal since she was put in the hospital. At this point, the only thing holding my mother back, it seems, is being home alone, despite that being something that she actually preferred before this incident. Again, her friend is staying until this Sunday, so even if my mother is released tomorrow, her friend will be there for another 4 days, and then my godfather and his friend will come and visit afterwards. But then there's the neighbors who are actively trying to get my mother to reach out to them for help. I have my own serious health problems that I'm trying to get under control, and I already work a high-stress job. The idea of taking time off indefinitely that I just don't have, to go back home and having to put myself under more stress, would honestly crush me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, it really sounds like your mom needs like professional help, because from the sounds of it, you're not able to make this kind of sacrifice for her. You've got a lot going on, and it's not like you don't care, it's just that you don't have time. So hopefully this all works out for you, because this sounds incredibly messy. The disastrous new owners of a restaurant I used to work at drove out the hardworking staff of 3 years in a matter of days, and I'm honestly so glad that I don't work there anymore. Here's what happened. Okay, so my bar had to change its name for legal reasons, and they decided to rebrand into a sports bar with another company. My service team had been working together for 3 years since we opened the place, and said we would all come back to give it a shot. We were told to file for unemployment for a month and a half while they revamped, and that we would be hired right back. The general manager texted on a Saturday near that proposed opening date that they wanted people people in Sunday afternoon. No email, but instead just an Android text less than 24 hours in advance. I was out of town, but I showed up a couple of days later, and I was told we'd be doing training, so I dressed appropriately. I then showed up to a restaurant in disarray and over 20 new TVs. And clearly, training would be accompanied by some manual labor first. The new owner asked me to clean out some trash cans, saying I'd wash them out to start the day, and then clean them at the end of the day. I started looking for the hose outside, and he told me that I'd need to soap them up first. As I was finishing, they asked me to wipe down the box fan. Then they asked me to spray paint some high chairs. I asked him for a mask, and I was then pointed to 2 used masks. I said I didn't want to use a used mask, and then I asked if I could go grab one from the first aid kit. I was then told this was not a good idea and was pointed back towards the used mask. In the midst of this, I was asked to clean out the box fan again. Mind you, this was a box fan that we had had for nearly 2 years that had a broken on-off switch, which I was spending more time at minimum wage to clean than it would cost to buy a new fan. Afterwards, my coworkers and I finished our tasks, and we were mumbling together about several concerning things and standing around while everyone else was eating lunch and tasting beer. The owner then came up to us and said the lean or clean thing with clenched fists, barely containing his anger. He told us to find something else to do. I asked if he wanted us to taste the beer, and he said no as he retorted smugly. I then heard him scream at one of the employees from his company shortly thereafter about a piece of paper that he himself had lost. While we had planned to give it a week, my coworkers and I met up and had a tough time tabulating the red flags, leading to people to finally admit that it was time to move on. Now, I thought I would stick it out for a couple more days, and I was even told for 2 successive days that we were doing training, but that just didn't end up happening. Just more general labor. We tasted some leftover food, but still not enough tables were ready. With 1 day before an invited prepaid event and 3 days before a soft opening with no food menu, no drink menu, or beer list, I realized that they were taking advantage of training to do a catering event, and I decided to leave. I then heard they hadn't hired any other service staff, and they were betting it all on us. But now that place is apparently a miserable revolving door, and honestly, I'm glad I got out of there. Yeah, that place sounds miserable, and I don't blame you for a second for quitting, because anyone who's gonna be like, oh yeah, we're gonna be doing some training, and then expects you to do manual labor is not someone you ever want to work for. My entitled roommate allows her obnoxious friend into our house, who then decides to be the rudest person on planet Earth. But after she started attacking all of us consistently and constantly, I finally snapped and put my foot down, demanding that she get out of our apartment and never come back, resulting in one of the biggest blowups in my friend group that I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. During one of my college programs at a very popular theme park in Florida, you know, a magical rat planet of sorts, I live with some roommates. The program offered housing, and at the time, they had 4 apartment complexes. One was for foreign college students, and the other 3 were for North American college programmers or CPs. Each apartment came with a different price tag that they automatically snatched from our ridiculous work checks weekly. Now, the newest and nicest apartments came with 2 refrigerators, but it was expensive. The second most expensive was quiet and close to the foreign college student complex, and then there was the oldest one, the cheapest one known as the party place. It was considered the hood or the ghetto of CP housing. Keep in mind, it had 2 pools, one with a hot tub, a gym, a tennis court, and was where the CP bus station for the car list was located. It was also in walking distance to multiple stores and restaurants. Now, no matter what apartment we chose, we had to share rooms with one other person, so I opted to save money, meaning that I chose the cheapest apartment. I had extended my program with a prior roommate and friend, so we decided to share rooms. For the sake of the story, I'll call her Kendra. Kendra and I also then met 3 women who we will call Jamie, Kelly, and Haley. We had room for one more roommate as it was a 3-bedroom, and after a month, we received our new roommate who I will call Shonda. Shonda was older but still in her 20s. She also had 2 younger children back in her state, namely a son and a daughter. We asked her if she was cool to leave her children for a year, so she explained that she had them young and never got to explore herself or be free. So we decided to mind our own business because it definitely was not our business. Now, it's important to note that Shonda meant what she said and was definitely some version of the word free. A week didn't pass where she wasn't drunk, clubbing, partying, or staying over some random dude's house. But again, we just minded our own business. Shonda then made friends with a girl from her job who I will call Amanda. Now, Amanda partied hard as well. And one day, Shonda and Amanda got into a drunken brawl in an alleyway behind a club. Shonda then complained to us about Amanda and her attitude. And while we did listen, we also remained silent because we were minding our own business. Now, Haley is Muslim, and due to this, we had a rule that guests were to be announced before coming in so that she could dress appropriately if need be. It didn't matter if it was a male or female. All guests were to be announced. And you know what? We all followed this except for Shonda, who just randomly showed up with Amanda one day. Now, Amanda is female, so Haley was okay with with it, but we were all still irritated. Anyways, it was Friday and they were getting ready to go out. Amanda then walked in and we were confused because the last we heard, her and Shonda had a falling out again, to which we just minded our own business. Amanda then started judging our apartment's layout, asking why we had it set up like that. We then explained that we enjoyed changing it up since all the apartments had literally the same decor. Shonda was in her room showering and getting dressed, while Amanda continued being rude to us in the living room. Amanda then asked how to get down to the downtown area of the magical rat planet. My roommate Jamie then said, well, if you take the F bus, it will take you right there. Amanda then responded by saying, I already know that. I meant by car. I don't ride the bus. Now, it's important to know that Jamie is the kind of person that will throw hands, and it showed in her face. Jamie remained quiet though, and kept typing on her laptop. Haley then asked Amanda what they had planned, and she, with an attitude, said they were going downtown and then clubbing. Some other things were also said that made Haley laugh. Now, Haley was annoying. She was very loud, boisterous. She scream-talked and laughed very loudly. Most people found her to be a lot, and although we hung out occasionally, I usually kept my distance, as I had and have severe anxiety, and she had that kind of personality that really spiked it. Well, Haley started laughing loudly, and I mean full-on cackling, and Amanda just looked on in disgust. She then shouted and said, oh my god, can you shut up? Now, once that happened, Haley stopped laughing, and my roommates and I all looked at her, and you know what? At that moment, I had had enough. I calmly but firmly spoke up and said the following: you need to leave. Amanda looked at me and said, what? I then repeated myself when I said, you need to leave our apartment now. Amanda, thinking I was joking, laughed at me and said, but why? I looked at her and I said, you've literally been rude to everyone since you walked in. You need to leave now. Amanda then tried to double back and say, but she was annoying and loud. But I responded and said, this is her home. She pays rent here and you don't. She has a right to be loud in her own home. Get out. I opened the front door and Amanda walked outside. Shonda then comes running from the back asking what happened. And we explain everything and I tell her Amanda isn't allowed in the apartment anymore. The other roommates also agree with this and Shonda is furious. The next day, Shonda asked for a roommate meeting where she says how we treated her friend was wrong. I asked her, didn't she herself have a fight with Amanda due to her attitude a few weeks prior? But then Shonda said, oh, we made up. Well, my roommates and I told her Amanda still wasn't allowed over as she was rude. About a week later, Amanda came over but stayed on the porch. She knocked on the door and when I answered the door, she apologized. I thanked her for the apology and she asked if it was okay if she could come in now. But when I turned and asked my roommates, they still said no, she can't come in. Well, Shonda was angry and put in an apartment transfer a week later. She left stating that she couldn't live where her friends weren't welcomed, and honestly, we just simply didn't care because Shonda was just as obnoxious as her friend Amanda. Okay, first of all, Shonda is literally one of the worst people on planet Earth. You mean to tell me that she left her kids to go work at Disney for a year? And yeah, they're talking about Disney. I think it's pretty obvious in this story. But like seriously, what kind of awful mother are you? If you're gonna have kids, then congratulations, you need to take care of them. You can't just abandon them and be like, I need to explore and find myself. It's like, no, you need to find a job and take care of the kids. Like, what are you doing? This is no time for partying. You need to buckle down and figure your life out. So honestly, good for you for putting Shonda in her place as well as Amanda, because both of them were obnoxious, and I don't blame you for kicking Amanda out in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled coworker pesters me repeatedly, stating that he needs a new phone only after he found out that we're getting new phones in the office. So I decided to maliciously comply by turning this entire scenario right back at him, and doing it in such a way where he can't say anything about it. Here's what happened. So there's always this one person that is so very important that he always needs to tell everybody how important he is, and how urgent his or her request truly is. Usually this goes hand in hand with utter incompetence and a generally nasty attitude. And this story is about one such person. So we were about to buy new work phones, and it definitely was time for an upgrade. The iPhones that the higher-ups thought were suitable for work were even 5 years ago better toys. The batteries drained quickly and never gave our users a really good experience. Well, we decided to wait until the newer version would come out, but news got around very quickly. Ever since the first rumor about a new shiny toy got around, there was this one salesperson who came into my office twice a week just to complain about his phone and how he desperately needed a new phone and how important it was for him to get a new phone as soon as possible. And no, for the record, he did not need it more than our guys out in the field, but boy, did he really cry about the thing. In the last 3 weeks, he went to our boss 3 times to complain that we apparently did not want to give him a new phone. Well, my boss rolled his eyes and suggested that we do something. Well, we had this one iPhone 13, which was still new in the box, and we had had that for emergencies. So last Thursday, as he came in again to whine about his awful phone, I was very glad to help him out, as his phone was so bad, and he just needed a new phone so badly, and ironically enough, we could provide him a new phone immediately. Well, he was quite obviously not happy that he was getting the old iPhone 13, but as he had complained so loudly, and the CEO himself had greenlit this new phone for him, there was nothing that he could do other than to clench his fist and pretend to be happy that his severe situation was taken care of. After that, we informed the CEO that the situation was settled, and he just smiled and ordered new iPhones for everybody in the office the exact same day. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where it's like, look, you're gonna get a phone eventually, but if you keep complaining, you're gonna get something that you probably don't want. And this story is proof that yes, that absolutely can happen. It is so unbelievably frustrating to deal with people who complain like this, where they act like they're in such a dire circumstance and they need help immediately. But in reality, they're just trying to work the system and get something that they definitely don't need. So good for you and the CEO for seeing through this garbage and solving this guy's problem in a way that I'm sure he wasn't expecting. My grandmother is a narcissistic weirdo who has consistently ruined every wedding that she's been to, and I'm honestly so sick of her that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to illustrate how my grandma really is, I'm gonna share some stories from my dad's life. The first one is when my mom and dad got married, and then the second one's with my dad's second marriage. So anyways, my dad was around 27 and my mom was 25, and they've been together for 3 years previously, and they wanted to tie the knot. Now, my grandmother wasn't a big fan of my mom from the very beginning, mostly because my mom didn't let her walk all over her to an extent, but also because my mom had an ex-fiance. It first began when she ruined the proposal. My dad proposed at a nice dinner party with family involved so everybody could be there. My mom knew about the proposal because she picked out the ring, but she just didn't know when it would happen. Well, my entitled grandma thought it would be a good idea and spoiled the proposal by declaring my uncle's deployment date right afterwards. Well, her plan didn't work and she got chewed out by my dad afterwards. However, throughout the entire dinner, she was making sly comments about the ring being too fancy and my mom being shallow about wanting such a nice ring. Now, I've seen the ring. It's one diamond with a twist band on it. It's far from being big and very far from being fancy. And after my mom didn't react to the ring, she began to go after my mom's weight. The dinner was a nightmare, and when she and my dad went home, they didn't talk much. And then the planning went straight to Hades. My mom and dad wanted to be married within a year of the proposal, mostly due to financial reasons, because my mom wanted to start having children. But my grandma disagreed with this. They were moving too fast, and when my mom mentioned her plan for children, all of a sudden she was too old to begin having children, and that if she wanted children, she should have stayed with her fiance instead of marrying her son. Keep in mind, my mom was 25. If they got married, she would be 26. And then my entitled grandma began to tell her to stop with her career because it would be easier to just be a stay-at-home wife, especially if she wanted kids. Now, my mom did not stop her pursuit in her career. Well, my mom ended up just ignoring her for the most part, ignoring phone calls, text messages, and any kind of message, which caused my entitled grandma to have a conniption fit and go crying to my dad, who basically only responded by saying, okay. Her behavior continued throughout wedding planning, and everything had to be her way or the highway. The church was never right. The arch, the date, the wedding list. She tried to convince my parents to push back their wedding just to fit her and her friend's schedule. And when my mom denied her friends coming, she threatened not to come either. Well, my parents budged only slightly, mostly with the church because my mom wasn't attached to any church for the most part. My grandma tried to convince them to get married in her church, but my dad nor my mom lived anywhere close to her. My parents lived in Michigan, while my grandma lived in Wisconsin. The church was also incredibly small, as it was for a town of under 2,000 people. And while my mom and dad had a small wedding of only family and a handful of friends, it would not have fit my mom's family. My grandma complained and moaned about not having the wedding at her church. That is until my grandfather shut her up, saying that he would go without her. Wedding dress shopping came around, and my mom wanted simple pale colors for bridesmaids, with the wedding party and any guest wearing a couple of neutral colors. The wedding party was pale greens and pinks to accent her dress, and she had a beautiful dress. It was laced up with a puffy skirt and a beautiful veil, all with a corset with flowy sleeves. But of course, my grandma did not like the dress. My mom didn't invite her to wedding dress shopping, and neither did she invite her own mother, but that's because she lived in Florida, and just had her bridesmaids there along with her. Well, my grandma was infuriated about this. How dare she not invite her mother-in-law? And wouldn't you know it, my aunt also never invited her to go wedding dress shopping either. She said that she always dreamed of picking out a dress for her daughters or her daughter-in-law. My mom broke her heart. And then when she saw the dress, her lips pursed and her eyes widened. She began to tear into the dress, saying that it made my mom look like a lady of the night, and how dare she wear white and lie to God. She said the dress looked like it came out of a dumpster, and the dress didn't flatter her and she looked like a sausage. My mom was so close to returning returning the dress because she no longer felt beautiful in the dress that she picked out. That is until my other grandmother chimed in and dug into my entitled grandmother and made her go cry to my dad like a beaten puppy. My entitled grandma cooled down for a while, and she didn't go after my mom while the planning was still going on, but instead she went after my dad. Now, my dad for the most part has always been the quiet, stoic type. His way of dealing with his mom is agreeing with her but not doing what she says. For example, she wanted to have this selection of wine and beer, and my dad just said okay, but didn't even go with her choices. She would constantly be barking orders, but he would always just agree with her and then never do it. Now, this method was rather effective at times. However, her nagging started to get worse as she felt like she was getting her way. She became more bold and started calling caterers and flower arrangers just to try and change the plans around. But my mom and dad told them ahead of time, don't change anything unless you hear it from us. After a few calls of fighting, arguing, and shouting, she finally stopped, mostly because my dad threatened to uninvite her if she kept going. Her nagging went from the wedding workers all the way to him. She nagged him so much that he had to go to the emergency room for severe migraines and headaches twice. Finally, the wedding came around, and it was going to happen the way my parents want. She could make petty comments or remarks about things, but she wasn't going to ruin this day for mom. Well, as you all know, she's a pain in the neck, and you could probably have seen this a mile away, but she wore a wedding dress to the wedding. In fact, my entitled grandma wore the same wedding dress she wanted my mom to wear, and she even came in with a little entourage of guests in wedding dresses. My dad took one look at them, walked away, and had her friends kicked out. Now, my entitled grandmother stayed because trying to get her kicked out would cause the cops to be called and more headaches than they would like. The wedding continued, and my entitled grandma wasn't allowed in any photos. And that was just my dad's first wedding. My mom says divorcing my father was such a relief because she could finally get away from his awful mother. My dad, on the other hand, is stuck with her until she passes away. And so is his new wife, who is my stepmom. Now, my dad and my stepmother got engaged in the year of 2020 during the New Year's. They had planned on a one-year plan, mostly because they wanted to get it over with since they've been together for 8 or 9 years already, and getting married at this point was a formality to tie things together. When they announced the date, they announced it to be on my entitled grandmother's birthday, and at first she was ecstatic, but then she realized that her birthday would have to be shared. In private, she complained to her gaggle of cronies about having the wedding on her birthday, but then COVID hit and the wedding got pushed back until about 2022 for a different date, and instead it landed on my stepmom's mother's birthday. Her mom had a long past and figured that this was a good way to include her. Well, this ensured the usual nagging. How dare she make it about her mother? My dad at this point grew a backbone and began putting his mom in her place. Perhaps it was his sobriety, or perhaps it was because he's been through one wedding and he is not doing it for a third time. My entitled grandmother tried to do the usual butt-in thing and make things all about her. It just simply had to be her way. But with a few tongue lashes, it stopped. Well, that is until it came to me. Over COVID, I gained about 50 pounds due to stress and pain. I had a lot going on that resulted in me being overweight. I have since been turning that weight into muscle, but I also still had a lot of muscle definition back then too. In fact, I had huge swimmer shoulders that made it difficult to find some dresses. My stepmom wanted simple black dresses. We could decide the style, but it just had to be black with open shoulders. I corresponded with my stepsister to see what she would wear, and we would get the same dress. Well, unsurprisingly, my entitled grandmother wanted me to get a different dress. A dress that was frilly. A dress that wasn't black, but was rather gold and was cream. Well, I immediately declined this opposition. I knew what she was trying to do. The only reason she was even dress shopping with me was because I was 13, couldn't drive, and didn't have my stepmom's card like she did. Well, I picked out the same dress my stepsister did, and I got it in black. They needed to special order it because they didn't have my size. They had one smaller and one bigger, so I was able to see what it would look like approximately. My entitled grandmother did not like the dress. It was a simple flowy skirt that hit the ankles with a really pretty design, and for the most part, it was really modest. The only thing really shown was my face and my arms. Well, my entitled grandmother didn't like that my arms could be shown because people would see my strawberry skin, my muscles, and it made me look like a man. Apparently, it made me look like a log and I was too fat for it. While she put me down, I just didn't care and I sent it to my stepmom and she just loved it. I then told my entitled grandmother that this is what we're going with and that was it. Well, when we tried to put in the order ticket, she tried to order a different style in the color that she wanted. Well, I already talked with a worker and I told them, hey, she's gonna try and pull this weird stunt, but just go ahead and put down what I say and not what she says, because she will ruin this wedding. Well, I think the worker didn't take it seriously at first until she started seeing how my grandmother was acting. Well, finally, the dress shopping was done, and then it was shoe shopping for a pair of flats. My stepmother had a very specific style in mind, black flats with a pointed toe. And honestly, in general, I do have trouble finding shoes. For reference, I'm a size 6 in women's with wide feet. So we had to go to 3 different places just to find the shoes. And the entire time, my grandmother was angry and made weird comments about my feet. I don't know why she was angry, like I have my dad's fat feet and my mom's shoe size. She finds the weirdest things to comment about. After shopping around, my grandmother wanted to go to lunch, even though I didn't, so I told her that I had an obligation. She then proceeded to call me a disappointment for not thinking of my grandmother, and that she hasn't seen me in a while, and that she deserves to have dinner with her grandchild. So you know what? I just walked home. I didn't want to deal with her, and the shopping plaza we went to was barely a mile away. A few weeks later, my dress came in, and we needed to go back to get it hemmed. I planned on just going with my mom, but in true entitled grandmother fashion, she butted in and took me instead. But I just simply bowed my head and took things in stride. During that time, I was experimenting with my hair, and I talked to my stepmother about how she wanted my hair because I planned on taking a lot of length off and dyeing my hair. Now, my stepmother was always like, of course, do whatever you want. And so I got this boyish cut and I had it dyed to a cool red color to match my mom. Well, of course, my grandmother did not like this. She said that I looked even more like a man. And I was like, what are you talking about? While also saying, well, how dare you do something so drastic with your hair? You need to consult me first. I took at her comments about my hair in stride and I just ignored her. Well, finally, I didn't have to see her until the wedding once everything was done with. And eventually the wedding came around. My grandmother complained about the decorations for a little while commenting about how everything is too vintage. The hotel wasn't a church, and how dare she not get married in a church. But again, I just ignored the comments, and I didn't bother telling my dad or my stepmom because I just wanted things to go smoothly and not to bother them with anything. We went out to get our hair done, and while I was in the seat, I could hear my grandmother commenting about how I destroyed my hair, only for my stepmom to shut her up and change the subject entirely. During the wedding day, everything was relatively quiet with her. A few comments here and there, but she was cordial and almost nice. When it came time to put the dress on, etc., we learned that we got me the wrong size pantyhose. We accidentally got the child sizes and not a woman's large size. And I was just gonna go without it since the skirt was long enough where no one would notice. But then my grandma offered me a pair of hers with a comment of saying, I highly doubt they'll fit someone your size, but you can try. And unfortunately, they fit. The wedding thankfully went smoothly. She didn't wear white, but she dressed like she was going to a funeral and was somehow in mourning and not attending her son's wedding. The reception came around and we ate, and she made a few comments about me not being ladylike and how I should have got the salmon and not the steak. The night went on a bit quietly, and the reception was to go until about 11 o'clock with an hour for cleanup. One thing about me is that I tend to go to bed early at around 8 o'clock or even 9 o'clock. We were staying in the actual hotel, so it's not like we had to walk or drive. Now, I mentioned wanting to go back up to the room to go sleep, but my grandma denied me. Eventually, 10:30 came around, and admittedly, I was cranky and very tired. I've been awake since about 5:30, and I wanted to go to bed. My entitled grandmother eventually came around, and she said that I ought to be grateful to be a part of this wedding, and that I should learn to be more ladylike. She then said that I should learn to just suck things up. Well, it took my crying and begging to go to bed for my stepmom to step in and tell her to give me a room key so that I could go to bed. I finally changed and I went to sleep, only to have the worst night's sleep of my life because my grandmother kept waking me up. She woke me up when she came in at 11 to come help clean things up. I then went down, cleaned things up, and went right back to sleep. But then she woke me up almost every single hour of the night to turn around or to tell me to stop snoring. By the end of it, I was so tired, and I slept the entire 7.5-hour car ride back home. Now, apart from her, everything else in the wedding was beautiful and fantastic, and I honestly hope I don't have to deal with her in the future because the way she acts is truly obnoxious. Yeah, your grandma sounds like a piece of work. For those who are unfamiliar, this is some more contextual backstory to a story we've covered previously on the channel, and now that we have the full picture, like honestly, I can't blame anybody for not wanting that lady around. She showed up to your dad's wedding in white, and then she literally tried to change everything about every wedding that she's been to. And it's like, dude, how obnoxious can you possibly get? Because your grandmother sounds like a piece of work, and hopefully for your sake, I hope you don't have to deal with her anytime soon as well. And entitled, Disney Dad Freaks Out When a Make-A-Wish Family Cuts in Line to See a Character at Disney World. As he literally makes a scene about their kid cutting in line, saying that he wished that his kid had a disease so that they could cut lines all the time. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's awful statements. Here's what happened. Okay, so at Disney World, we have quite a few Make-A-Wish families, and if you're not familiar with Make-A-Wish, it's an organization that grants wishes to very sick children. These kids are often terminally ill, and it breaks my heart every time they come to visit the characters. Everybody in the room always gets very emotional. Make-A-Wish families get special treatment in the parks, as they should. These kids usually cannot wait in long lines, so if you have a Make-A-Wish pass, you have a fast pass for everything. And for rides, it's easy. Just send the family through the fast pass lane. But for characters, it can get a bit tricky. We have some characters that meet outside and therefore don't have a fast pass lane. There's one queue and you can see how many people are in front of you since there aren't any twisty queue lines that go through a building. In this case, Make-A-Wish families just come up to the character attendant, which is the person that takes care of the character, which in this case is me, and shows us their special pass. We go over to the next family in the regular line, inform them that the Make-A-Wish family is going to cut in front of them, and after they're done, that next family will get their turn. Usually, people are hot and sweaty and tired, but they get it, and they wave me away with a quick, "Oh, it's no problem." Sometimes their kids get a bit frustrated because they don't understand why the Make-A-Wish kid can get to cut in front of everybody, but the parents explain that they're doing a good deed by letting a really sick kid go first. Sometimes people get huffy, but I just ignore them. They'll be fine to wait another minute. Well, occasionally people get really upset because they don't know what Make-A-Wish means, but it's oftentimes pretty obvious that the kid is very sick, so people can put two and two together with context clues, and we can always explain if they still don't get it. But for the most part, American families have heard of Make-A-Wish and know what that means. However, people can still get really mad. I had a friend who was character attending with Princess Aurora who saw a Make-A-Wish family let the next family in line know what was going on and was shocked to hear the entitled dad's response. And this is honestly one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. They say to this family's dad, "I'm sorry, sir. This Make-A-Wish family is going to go first. Thank you so much for your patience." This entitled jerk then says, "Are you kidding me? We've been waiting forever. This is ridiculous." My friend then says, "I'm sorry, sir," and then shot him a really confused look and turned away to focus on the Make-A-Wish family. This entitled Disney dad then says something that honestly blew our minds. "Wow, I wish my kid had a disease so that they could cut all the lines." And he muttered this under his breath, probably louder than he intended to. Well, when he said that, everybody froze. Princess Aurora, my friend who was working, the family behind this entitled Disney dad, and the Make-A-Wish family all turned to stare at this idiot. Aurora was pissed and said something to the effect of, "Well, that wasn't a very princely thing to say," before turning her attention to the Make-A-Wish little girl. Her mom looked like she was about to cry, and my friend barely kept his composure, went right over to this guy and said, "I bet our friends here would give anything to be in your shoes, don't you think?" The family behind this entitled jerk also grumbled about him being rude and horrible. Well, this guy knew that he had put his foot in his mouth. His daughter was oblivious to the entire thing, thankfully, as she was quietly playing with her Barbie and barely even blinked when she was told that she'd have to wait a bit longer to see Aurora. During their turn, Aurora was cold towards the entitled dad, but great with the daughter. They had a long talk about how a real princess is kind and patient and compassionate towards others. After it was all said and done, the entitled Disney dad slunk away, and I honestly hope he learned from his awful behavior. Oh my gosh, that is honestly so unbelievably horrible. I can't imagine someone being so out of touch and so obtuse that they would say something so devastating. Like seriously, who in their right mind would say something like that in front of a family who is clearly suffering? There was no reason for that kind of language or to say something like that. Like this kid is already suffering enough, and this guy's literally only thinking about the line in front of him, not about the little kid that probably will not make it in a few years, if that. What a horrible human being, like seriously. In the back of my head, I kind of wish he would have been kicked out of the park for that comment, but I can understand why he had to stay in line because that probably would have been a bad look for everybody all around. But regardless, good for everybody involved for the way they handled this, especially with Aurora basically putting this guy in his place by teaching the daughter a lesson, because that guy is an absolute monster for the things that he just said. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my girlfriend bring her dead dog's ashes on vacation? Because right now she is very pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I have been together for 4 months, and she had a dog that died a few months ago before we met. I have only ever spent the night at her place. I live with my sister and her 2 kids, so it is a little chaotic at my place. My girlfriend has a small urn on her bedside table that has her dog's ashes in it, and it's maybe 2 to 3 inches tall. Before she turns off her lamp to go to sleep, she always gives it a little tap on the top and says goodnight, as though she is talking to the dog. And I think it's weird, but I never have said anything about it. We were supposed to go away for the weekend, and on Friday I was watching her pack, and I noticed that she took the urn and put it in the top pocket of her backpack. I asked her what she was doing, and she says she didn't want to leave the dog behind. I told her she was not allowed to bring the urn, as it made me very uncomfortable. I didn't want to see it anytime we returned to our hotel room. I didn't want her talking to her dead dog after we spent quality time together. It's weird, and frankly, she's been mourning this dog for too long. Now, she didn't argue, but instead, she simply started to unpack her bag. She told told me to have fun on the weekend getaway as she would not be coming along. I then asked if she was seriously choosing a dog's ashes over me, but she said she was choosing herself over me as I could have spoken to her with some kindness and empathy, but I didn't. She also said that I didn't get to dictate how long she's allowed to grieve, and then she asked me to leave. She hasn't replied to my text messages, and I think she's completely overreacting. And when I talked to my sister, she said that she can see both sides of this argument. So honestly, am I the jerk for thinking my girlfriend is weird for being so attached to her dead dog's ashes? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Oh my gosh, I don't think I've seen anything so insensitive in so long. For starters, yes, to the original poster, I really do think you're the jerk because this was so uncalled for. Your girlfriend is clearly grieving the loss of her dog. This obviously hit her hard and she's having a hard time overcoming it. So for you to literally start trying to control her life, all because you find it weird, instead of trying to understand why everything's going wrong, like that is so toxic it's not even funny. Because I know for a fact if I was in the original poster shoes, I would be trying to comfort her and be like, listen, I understand where you're coming from and I want to help. So telling her that she's not allowed to bring her dog's ashes with her on this trip, like that is not okay. Especially when this is not even that big of an urn. It's literally 3 inches tall, like that's nothing. So what if she has it with her on the nightstand? Like, does that really make a difference in your life? This is such an inconsequential thing, you really just should have kept your mouth shut and helped her work through this process of grieving her dog. So yes, you are absolutely the jerk. The way you handled this was completely uncalled for, and I don't blame her for being upset and not wanting to go on this trip. Entitled old people absolutely lose their mind anytime they find out that I'm not religious, causing them to change entirely, showing me that they were hypocrites from the very beginning. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm almost 30 years old and I was raised by a Christian mom, and honestly, I hated it. I stopped following anything related to religion at around 13 years old, and I never looked back. I completely get why people are religious and follow a higher power, and I'm never rude when I find out someone is religious. I try to abide by their rules, like if there's a dietary restriction or a gift of some kind. I don't like making anyone feel uncomfortable, so I always go out of my way to understand their point of view when it comes to certain topics. But some of these older people, on the other hand, are just completely out of left field. Every time I tell an old person I'm not religious, it flips a switch in them that is honestly just so frightening, to the point where I'm scared to tell people that I'm not religious. They go from being full of smiles and kindness all the way to a massive frown, and they act like I'm Satan. I usually get hit with the biggest and longest and most boring religious bombardment by these people. And at one point, someone yelled "shame on you" in front of everyone when I was at work, and that caught me so off guard. I also find it crazy how they think it's okay to try and inflict a particular fate onto you just because you aren't religious, that I'm apparently destined to be damned for eternity. Like, brother, I was having a bad day. Do you really want to say that? Like, I don't act this way when I see someone wearing a cross. My own mother and many of my aunts are Christians, so like I know how to act and be respectful. I don't go on any anti-religious tirades to other people. You want to know why? Because it's rude and intrusive. I'm not religious because that's how I want to live my life. Other people are religious because that's how they want to live their lives. It's now gotten to the point where as of late, I've been invited to churches a lot more often these last 2 years, and I never get a normal response when I tell them I'm not interested. If anything, they start to push even more. Some old woman even pulled into our driveway when my dad was changing a tire and was talking about the church that she goes to and how we should join. And it's like, ma'am, thank you for the invite, but when you see a man laying under a vehicle, maybe you should leave him alone. My one uncle will once in a while send me like 30-minute videos of sermons and Bible readings or scriptures, and it literally offends him to no end when I ask him to stop sending me these things because I'm not a part of his church and I never have been. This then usually results in him sending me more religious material that are usually crudely highlighted or circled as if he's trying to teach me a lesson, and a lesson in what is honestly anybody's guess. No doubt if I send him videos about atheists or agnostics, I know for a fact he would lose his mind. I love how he no longer sees me as his niece that he can just talk to or bond with, and instead some lost soul he's trying to conjure to his following. It really sucks because I'm still a human being with feelings and emotions. I am literally no different than anyone else, other than I just simply do not want to follow a religion or go to church. Instead of sending me a funny video about a dog or a clip from my favorite TV show, he either completely ignores me or sends me some more weirdly religious stuff I don't understand, because again, I'm not a part of his religion. I just wish these older people would understand that in modern day society, people are choosing to live alternative lifestyles that are virtually harmless and leave people alone. I don't go around asking people to stop being religious. That is literally insane behavior. Some people I used to be close with straight up stopped talking to me when they found out, as if I committed some sort of horrible crime, which baffled me because I knew you were religious and I still loved and cherish you like a normal human being. I don't know, man. It all just really sucks, and I seriously hate being treated this way. Okay, I'm honestly right on the original poster's side because I cannot understand why anyone would act this way. It's one thing to tell someone, hey, you should check out my church, but it's another thing to be super intrusive in this other person's life and then treat them like garbage when they say no or they don't like follow your religion. Because that's like proof right there that you never actually cared. You only cared about them joining your church and nothing else. You were just trying to check some stupid box and that's it. And that, in my opinion, is so hypocritical because I don't know about you, but I could smell BS from a mile away, and I honestly don't care what religion it is. When someone's pushing their religion heavily onto me and I know for a fact they don't actually care about me, it is like a lighthouse in the middle of the night. You can see it from a mile away and it's like, my God, you've got to be kidding me right now. These people don't actually care about me and they only want me to join their religion for some weird selfish purposes. So yeah, these people who are treating you poorly honestly are not good people in the slightest. And I seriously do not blame you for being frustrated. Am I the jerk for not being comfortable in wearing a dress, even though my best friend is asking I wear one to be in her wedding party? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my best friend is getting married in about 6 months. I'm in the wedding party and I would be her maid of honor if not for her sister. I'm a masculine-leaning lesbian with short hair and very androgynous style. Think collared shirts and Carhartt pants. I'm a farmer and an outdoors person, and my style reflects that. I don't think I own anything that would be considered chic or nice. Needless to say, it's been years ever since I've worn a dress. When her and I have talked about her weddings, we always talked about me wearing a cute little suit or jumper type of thing, and she was always totally on board with this, saying, oh, definitely, and that this is the obvious choice. Well, a couple of weeks ago, she sent a message to all the wedding party girls that included a note about what kind of dresses she wanted us to wear, such as the length and the colors, and asking that we show her our choices first before purchasing. I then texted her on the side and I said, I'm okay to wear a suit for the wedding, yes? And she responded with a long message that included things like how she looked up pictures of bridesmaids with suits and how she thought it looked messy and like an outlier. She said I could wear a flowy jumper with wide legs that could look like a dress, but that it may need to be a dress for the day. I was totally surprised by this and very uncomfortable with the idea, and also hurt by the words she used to describe the assumed one lesbian and non-binary person in the bridesmaid lineup photos that she found. Now, I haven't responded yet, but the tension is palpable. I'm not even sure how to respond or if I should push back in some kind of way, but the idea of standing up there in front of so many people I know, as this is a big wedding, in a dress of some kind really just makes me cringe. My other friend I asked about said that she can't even picture me wearing a dress. I know that it's her day, and that my outfit may theoretically detract some attention from her, as I would be the only bridesmaid not in a dress. But is it wrong of her to ask me to go against my gender identity and try to comfort her just for wedding photos? Part of me feels like me wearing a dress would be equally as weird of a distraction because everyone would be wondering why I'm in a dress, since they know me and my style and my gender expression. I don't want to rock the boat or make this about me, but I want to show her that it's disrespectful and hurtful of her to ask that of me. It feels like she wants me up there as a prop and not as my whole self. What should I do? Honestly, I think this might be a good time to step away from the wedding party and just attend as a guest. Like if that was me and someone put me in that situation and I felt the way that you did about the whole dress thing, then I would be like, look, I understand and I really appreciate it, but I think I just wouldn't be a good fit for this and I'm just going to be a guest. And then just leave it at that, because this obviously is a sticking point for you, and I don't think compromising that in any way is going to solve things. Today, I messed up by getting a server fired over a wrong pizza, resulting in one of the most awkward lunches I've ever had eating out. Here's what happened. Okay, so I went out for lunch today at a local pizzeria. The place was packed and you could tell that everyone was really stressed out, especially the owner, who I am acquainted with relatively well. So I order a pizza and everything seems fine up to this point. Eventually, the pizza arrives and I notice that it's the wrong pizza. I order the one that's named after the owner, while the pizza that I got was the one named after the restaurant. The owner just so happened to walk by, so I let him know by saying, sorry, but I think we got the wrong pizza. He then muttered the name of the pizza and picked it up, quickly and quietly disappearing into the kitchen. As I waited, I noticed that the owner called the server who took my order into the kitchen. The next thing I heard was the owner giving this guy a severe dressing down that literally could be heard from the dining room, telling him that this is the third or fourth time in the past week that he mixed up the pizza orders and said that wrong orders are getting comped from his paycheck. He then ended it by kicking the server out. I eventually saw the server quickly getting his jacket and leaving the pizzeria. And now I feel like garbage because I feel as if said server would still be here if it weren't for my complaint about the wrong pizza. Now, the ironic part is that I ended up getting getting another wrong pizza, but I didn't want to sacrifice another server over it, so I just let it go and I ate that one. The pizza was okay, the toppings were just kind of thrown on the dough, collecting in the middle of the pizza in one big pig pile. I ended up giving a big tip before leaving, but I don't think I'm ever going back to that pizzeria ever again. Oh man, this scenario is a nightmare. I'm sure all you wanted to do was eat some pizza and then get out of there. You definitely didn't plan on getting 2 different pizzas that were not what you ordered, while also getting someone fired in the process. Like, I don't know about you, but that's not how I would ever want to plan my lunch out. So yeah, this wasn't really a mess up on your end. I'm sure that server was probably on thin ice as it is, and you just so happen to be the final straw that broke the camel's back. Because my god, that is not a scenario I would ever want to be in. Am I the jerk for demanding that my fiance's parents change their plans to have a vacation at the same place as our honeymoon? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I have our wedding coming up in April. We had brainstormed for a while on where best to spend our honeymoon, and we went over the more popular and well-known places, but then landed on a more offbeat destination that I felt would truly be a great place for us to start our life as a married couple. I've been looking forward to it just being the two of us, and I know he has a really hectic work schedule, and we were going to make the most out of this no matter what. A couple of days ago, he told me that his parents had been impressed about how hyped I was about it, and we're planning on going there for vacation too, largely overlapping with our dates. And in fact, they're staying at the same hotel as us. And honestly, I was livid. They can go any other time, but why right now? He said that he had suggested that, but his mom said that they had taken time off for the wedding too, and it worked well into their plans. Also, that since we're going to be going back, it will allow them to maybe see us a few times before we leave. I was almost in tears. I was so angry. He tried to reassure me, saying that they'd promise it'll be 2 separate things and they won't be inserting themselves into our honeymoon. They want us to enjoy it and they'd be doing their own thing. And I want to believe it, but I know his mom. I like her as a soon-to-be mother-in-law, but she can be very clingy and routinely laments how far he and now us are from them. So I just have a feeling that the 2 plans are not going to be as independent as he thinks they're going to be. I vented about it to my parents too, and my mom agreed with me that it isn't right, and my dad is more on the fence about it as he doesn't think that everything is ruined. I've demanded my fiance make them change their plans, and he says that he asked them to, and they promised to do their own thing. And honestly, what can he do? Tell them that he doesn't believe them and call them liars? Well, I messed up here and I said, well, if that's what it takes, and then he got quiet. I realized that was too much, and I sincerely apologize for crossing a line. This has been eating me up, and I was envisioning a certain type of honeymoon, and then this happens. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I am incredibly pissed off. Oh no, you are not the jerk. This is honestly not okay. You mean to tell me that instead of rescheduling their stupid vacation, they're planning on still going while you guys are on your honeymoon? Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so uncalled for. And they're staying at the same hotel. Like, that is honestly so toxic. There is legitimately no good excuse for that, especially because they know what they're doing. And I guarantee you this is all some kind of ploy to be like, oh, we just happen to run into you. Like, no one's gonna want to go on their honeymoon and deal with this garbage. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. This is uncalled for behavior, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. An entitled realtor parked in my spot at my apartment complex and then decided to give me the biggest attitude on planet Earth when I asked him to move. So I decided to get some petty revenge by playing music as loud as possible to try and ruin this realtor's chance at selling anything in my neighborhood. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I lived in a condo where we all had assigned parking spots, and there are several visitor spots sprinkled throughout. Well, one day I came home in the middle of the weekday, and a vast majority of the parking spaces were empty. So I was very confused as to why a large, unfamiliar SUV was in my spot. Now, we get the occasional visitor that mistakenly or purposefully parks in whatever spot they want. With this in mind, I parked right behind him and approached the window to ask him how long he was planning to be there, and he said to me 45 minutes. I then asked him if he could move to a visitor spot, as there were some directly across from mine, and he said no in the rudest and shrillest voice I've ever heard come out of a man. Then he started going off about how he's a realtor, he's showing this house, you know, the door to which is directly in front of my spot. The property manager said to park here in this spot, even though I highly doubt that, and so on and so forth. So I decided that I didn't have any time or energy for Karens that day, and in the middle of his ranting, I just said okay then and walked away to go park in a visitor spot. Rude people really irritate me, especially if they're defending their awful behavior. So I promptly took my revenge. My window faces the parking lot, so I set up my speaker on the windowsill and started blasting hardcore rap music for about half an hour, in the hopes that the buyer decided our quiet little community wasn't quiet enough for them. I figure the vast majority of my neighbors were at work anyways, so 30 minutes of loud music wasn't going to annoy anyone too much. So I really hope I wasted wasted a bunch of his time, because maybe next time don't be rude to complete strangers, especially if you're parking in their spot. Yeah, if anyone's parking in my spot and then talking to me like that, I'm gonna make their life a living nightmare. Whether that's playing music really loud like the original poster did, or even calling a tow truck company, which by the way, you would have been well within your right to do. So good for you for getting back at this guy, because the way he acted was completely unacceptable. An entitled jerk tries to force me out of business by suing me into oblivion, all because I broke up the monopoly he had in our area. But as a result, I won every single case this guy brought against me, leaving me and my fiance with a massive payout after he had to settle for a huge amount of money. Here's what happened. I'm 26 years old and I decided to open my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I'm in a small town of maybe 1,000 people in the rural Midwest. Because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with somebody. We went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city 30 minutes away, which is a small city of about 8,000 people, and when we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and I saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of local beer, we were charged $15. Now, I was thinking about this and figured that I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. Back in February, I was furious about my awful job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank, and they told me, hey, with the pandemic, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap. A couple of weeks later, I went in and met with my friend's mom and pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. So then, as a result, I got a loan at a fantastic interest rate. After that, I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper license, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with my distributor, I learned, even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in the city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 35% to a 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store and had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. Now, my hometown is near a national forest. As such, we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year-round. My first week, and that being the week before Memorial Weekend, right after opening, I had made $4,000 in profit. And it was great being my own boss. If someone was rude to me or my girlfriend, I would just say, oh, you could do business elsewhere. If someone says something awful about my girlfriend's ethnicity, well, they can pay me 15% more at the register. Did the gang and I run out of alcohol? Well, time to grab my keys and go to the store and get some more. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier. But man, it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to pound sand for being a jerk. But trust me, all of our troubles were just beginning, as things took a turn in a way that I honestly never expected. A couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I then rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum any higher. He then walked out of my store and said, well, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer. The next month, a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out, and I decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I Googled the guy, and I soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that that is the guy who owns both the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he is on city council. With a little bit further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, a tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol. Later, I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor license. And honestly, I just love small town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state, so I decided to call him and try and get some kind of legal advice. I talked to him and I read the documents that I had been handed and served over the phone and the research that I had done. After receiving all of the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some kind of advice, but instead I heard him say, hang on, I've got to make a call. And he then hung up. At this point, I'm freaking out, and I was about to post online to try and figure things out in another place, and honestly, I just kind of wanted someone to tell me that it was going to be okay, and that I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. Well, eventually my uncle called me back. He said to me, "Hey, I just got off the phone with my partner, and he agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you would like to accept, we can discuss this at my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Well, this is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 different states. So we meet and we discuss the case. And it turns out that the guy filed a libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his reputation and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but my uncle told me that we would win this case no problem. Well, 3 weeks later and the case is dismissed. But after that, my uncle says the following: "People like that piece of work will likely try to file another suit against you. And if that happens, call me and I promise I will help." Well, the very next day I got served again, but this time I am the defendant. And this is not about my store, but instead it's me. I swear to God, I look at the documentation and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name, mine is listed as the defendant. And this is literally the same thing that happens before, because 4 weeks later the case is dismissed. And over the next 3 months, I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case's hearing, we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were all sitting in this room. The judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already. Is there any way we could come to an agreement that will stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer then says they have an offer and hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially reads that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of the remaining loan principal. I then outright rejected the offer and made a counteroffer instead. I said, "If you drop this case, I won't sue you for harassment." He then busts out laughing. "Sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue you into bankruptcy and buy that crappy store from the bank when you foreclose." Well, the judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason why I was getting sued. My uncle then straight up said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently you were never told. I've taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has ensured a suit against you." After that, we just left, and I was then informed a few days later that the litigation was dropped. Well, right now my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against this guy. I want to sue this guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful because if we set the damages too high, it'll look like we're being vindictive in some kind of way. This suit won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free, essentially, I'm not going to complain. Looking back on this, I'm so thankful that my friends and family supported me the entire way, especially my uncle, because without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my entire business. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they would like to share. Here's what they had to say a year after all of this went down. Okay, so this is a follow-up post that I made last year. For reference, last year I opened a liquor store with my girlfriend, who is now my fiance, in my hometown. The nearby city had a few liquor stores run by a city councilman, who is the person who controls who gets liquor license in said city. With me being 40 minutes away, he was losing business and offered to buy my store. Well, I refused, and instead, he tried to sue me for libel. He attempted to do this for half a year, where he continued to sue me, my business, or anything else he could, until it was thrown out with contempt. Fortunately, I was able to get my lawyer to take the case pro bono, so I didn't get buried in legal fees as the guy intended. And after that, my lawyer and I began to file suit against the guy. So that's where we left off a while ago. As of now, the case is over and I can finally talk about it. So to first explain why I didn't post any updates previously, when I filed the lawsuit, my lawyer said to not post anything about it online. I don't think that this had anything to do with the original post, but what he told me was that if the opposing counsel found a post and was able to link it back to me, they could argue that I was only filing suit to gain online clout. But now the court case is over, so I can now talk to you guys. We filed the complaint about a month after the last case against me was dismissed, and what we filed for was multiple accounts of malicious misuse of due process. After filing the complaint, we needed to serve the papers to the guy. Now someone had to have told him because he dodged getting served for multiple weeks. The only reason the process server was able to serve him was because there was a meeting to approve the transfer of liquor license between 2 businesses in the city, which if you think about it is really ironic. He and his lawyers answered the complaint and said everything in the complaint and the summons was a deliberate misrepresentation of the facts. None of the suits filed against me were in any way malicious, but given that the only thing that changed between most of the suits was the named defendant, pretty much disproves all of that. He then went on to say that this current suit was simply a move by me to get revenge on him for trying to protect his business, and pretty much the entire answer was just him saying, "No, you did this, not me." After that, we moved into discovery, which I will talk about in a minute. Through the discovery process, there were a couple of motions for dismissal by the defendant's counsel. The first one was just in general that all the facts are wrong, and this was a lawsuit filed in bad faith. This was immediately thrown out by the judge because the 4 suits being filed back to back, with only the defendant being changed, indicated that this was potentially a malicious lawsuit. The second motion was that these weren't malicious because the defendants were different. Effectively, the argument is that if it's the same defendant, then it would be a malicious suit. But because the defendant kept getting changed from suit to suit, that means that there was a legitimate complaint that they were trying to get solved, which technically would be legal and I would have no standing. However, the judge acknowledged that while the argument is legally sound, if you simply look at the wording of the law, it completely violates the spirit that is written within it, and the actions of the defendant only serve to confirm that the previous lawsuits were filed in bad faith. So then the motion was tossed out of court. Later, during discovery, the defendant filed for a venue change, and it seems how we filed in my local court. They argued that the local jury would be biased towards me, and this got dismissed as well because they forgot to ask for a jury trial. We were perfectly fine with proceeding with a bench trial, so we didn't ask for a jury. The judge decided then that because they didn't request a jury, a venue change would not offer any significant change in the trial. They then used that decision and some history I have with the same judge to appeal to the state court to dismiss the case, but they refused. So anyways, back to discovery. The whole process was extremely slow, and we were still in the middle of discovery when we decided to settle. We had received multiple settlement offers up to that point and rejected every single one of them. But at the end of November, the defendant decided to fire the manager of one of his businesses. The former manager then decided to turn over some text messages to the court. You see, we requested all communications about the malicious filings from last year that the defendant had made, and that included any text messages. That showed that neither counsel nor the defendant did the proper diligence to comply with discovery. The defense was then able to get the text removed from the evidence. And while the text might not have been able to be used as evidence if we had proceeded with trial, you can't erase that you hid evidence from the judge's memory. And trust me, they don't tend to take that very well. With this coming to light, the chicanery that the defendant had been pulling, the judge was just over all of this at this point. Our lawyers had to meet with the judge at the beginning of this month in December, where the defense's counsel was reprimanded. After this, the defendant offered a really big settlement, and after my fiance and I discussed it, we decided to accept the offer. Our wedding is now getting closer, and frankly, we don't want to deal with the court stuff anymore. The whole trial process was still months away, and there wasn't any guarantee that we would have gotten any more money. Unfortunately, it's not the nuclear revenge that me and my fiance were hoping for, and although the settlement did pay the remainder of my loan, we will have a nice chunk of money left over as a result of it. Wow, this is a crazy situation. First of all, that guy who owned that other business is a complete scumbag. Like seriously, look at what he tried to do to the original poster and his family. He literally made up multiple lawsuits just to try and get this guy taken down, and he even admits to that in the meeting itself. That must have been a nightmare, and I can only imagine going through that so many times while still trying to maintain some semblance of sanity. So good for you and your uncle for making sure that you came out on top, because this guy's behavior was completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not sharing the parking spot with my roommate, even though we agreed that that spot would belong to me while we're living in a place that I don't want to live in? Because right now they're trying to go back on our deal, and it's honestly stressing me out beyond end. Here's what happened. Okay, so my roommate and I are in college, and we moved into an apartment for the school year. When we were touring places last year, my roommate shut down every place we toured except for one because it didn't have the things that she wanted, namely a washer and dryer unit, walk-in closet bedroom, as well as a certain size living room that she was looking for. The one place that she liked, I eventually agreed to live in with one requirement. I would get the one parking spot for the school years and she would get it for the summers. And literally, this was my only requirement to live in a place that I didn't like. Fast forward 8 months and we re-signed the lease to live in the same apartment again. Then, out of nowhere, my roommate, who doesn't even have a car or off-campus job by the way, mentioned splitting a street parking pass for the next school year so that we could share the spot, and that she wanted to start in March, even though summer doesn't start until April 28th. She is getting a free car for the summer and school year next year from her boyfriend, and just randomly brought it up like this was normal and part of the agreement. When I mentioned to her that our agreement and my only thing I needed was the parking spot for the school years, which may not be fair but she agreed to it, she said that only applied for 1 year, as if that was some kind of obvious thing. She waited until we signed the lease to have this conversation, and I honestly would have looked somewhere else to live that had 2 parking spaces if I knew this was what she was thinking. I compromise with her on literally everything because we are friends. She keeps the heat on so high because she's cold. She got the pick of the bathroom that she wanted. She has her boyfriend over every day, and I never ever complain. I'm waiting for her to bring up the conversation again to put my foot down and say I'm not street parking for the school year or even splitting the spot for the school year, and I will offer her $150 for the spot considering a street parking permit is $25. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because this honestly is incredibly annoying. No, you're not the jerk at all. The fact that your friend did this right after you signed the lease, like that is crazy and honestly so toxic because they clearly knew what they were doing. They did this on purpose, and they did this in such a way where it's like, oh yeah, you have no choice but to agree, because it really sounds like they're going to try to do this pretty much no matter what, and that really is not fair for you. So no, you would not be the jerk by saying you don't want to share this spot because this is what you originally agreed on, and the fact that they don't want to honor that, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. Someone from my work is spreading a rumor that I cheated on my girlfriend, and it is now ruining my relationship, and I now feel at such a loss that at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I will preface this by saying that my girlfriend and I have been in a loving relationship for over 4 years. We live together and we have never had any significant issues before. My girlfriend and I attended a housewarming for one of my coworkers on the weekend. At this party was a woman that I had met before at a previous work event, and she was friends with my coworkers who was hosting the party and also worked in our industry. About a couple of hours in, she comes over to me and my girlfriend, turns to her and says, "I'm sorry, but I can't sit here and watch this anymore. Your boyfriend cheated on you." Well, we were both shocked. My girlfriend doesn't say much and I protest my innocence. She goes on to say that I had hooked up with a different friend of hers at that work event that we met at, and apparently her friend told her this on their way home. Now, I did not know who she was talking about and didn't even recognize the name of the friend. It's possible I met her as well, but it would have been only for like a brief moment. My girlfriend takes my side of the argument, and we awkwardly leave a little bit after that, mostly because I was so angry. It's been 3 days ever since then, and things are weird. The vibes in our house are completely off. We aren't talking like we used to. We aren't texting each other throughout the day. We aren't laughing or telling stories. We've had conversations about it, but all I can do is deny cheating, which doesn't seem to make a difference, which is understandable. She says that she believes me, but I think there's a part of her that keeps saying, well, what if he's lying? And that thought's crept its way in and it won't leave. What can I do from here to prove that nothing happened and get my relationship back to where it was? It almost seems like it would be easier if I had cheated, so I could admit it and we could potentially move forward. My whole office seems to think that I'm a cheater too, which isn't nice. And lastly, can anything be done about this person I don't know making stuff up about me? What should I do? Okay, honestly, first and foremost, it's impossible to prove that you didn't cheat because, my God, the fact that this is even becoming like a rumor is proof that you work in a hostile work environment. And also, I think it might be time to go to Human Resources and explain just that. If I was in your shoes, I would be reporting the person who's spreading lies about you and be like, look, this is not okay. Because seriously, accusations like this are insidious and so absolutely uncalled for. So honestly, I really hope this gets worked out for you because this is something I can't imagine living through, especially when you know for a fact that you haven't done anything wrong. Am I the jerk for not inviting my stepmother to my wedding after enduring so many years of her mistreating me and the rest of my family? Because right now my dad is not taking this well, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents divorced when I was very young. My father cheated on my mother with his now wife. Ever since I was a child, she was never nice to me. She constantly made fun of me and my mother, who she never met, and she made awful comments about my mom's side of the family and deceased relatives. She was awful to me emotionally, made fun of my body and my clothing, called me and my mother names, and she also never allows my father and I to spend time alone together. Most recently, she banned me from their house after reading a text message that I sent to my dad, stating that she does not respect my boundaries and doesn't understand what the role of a stepmother should be. She also took down every photo of me in their home. My relationship with my dad has always been rocky. He was never there physically, emotionally, or financially for me. They have a son together who is 10 years younger than me. However, she kicked him out of the house several times since he was 13 and often gets in screaming matches with my dad in front of him. This happened again about a month ago, and my brother told me that he thought they were getting divorced. My dad said she wouldn't be at the wedding, and of course, about a week ago, they made up, but my brother is deeply hurt and is not speaking to her. And it was then that he told me not to invite her to the wedding. I told my dad this, and that given the years of mistreatment, neither me nor my fiance want her there. He said he cannot comply with that, and if she isn't invited, then he's not coming along either, and it will prevent his side of the family from coming, which I didn't know is entirely accurate as no one in his family can stand her. I eventually compromised and said that she can come if she sits a few rows back, which I've seen at weddings of others with divorced parents. He is not happy with that either and will not give me a straight answer. In fact, he keeps dismissing me. I don't feel like she deserves to be there, and if that means my dad doesn't come, then so be it. I compromised my own wishes to even invite her in the first place. She booked a hotel room months ago for this wedding, and I was previously against my will giving her an invite, but the recent events with my brother and interactions with my father make me want to stand my ground. She feels she had the right to be there because she is his wife. So honestly, am I the jerk for not extending an invite to her? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 times. This is your wedding, so you absolutely get to decide who is and isn't there. And based on the current drama, it seems like this is not someone you want at your wedding in the first place. So in my opinion, I think you are completely justified. My entitled sister and her partner scammed me and my parents out of $17,000 under the deliberate lie that they would be using that money for their wedding venue. But after I found out that they used that money to fly my sister's in-laws out to their wedding, I'm now incredibly hurt, and I'm deciding to back out of their wedding altogether. Here's what happened. So my younger sister, who we will call Katie, and her partner, who we will call Chris, are getting married in April in Dubai. She has always wanted an extravagant wedding and is going all out on this. So the wedding is happening over 4 days. There are 70 guests, but they want us, namely me, my husband, and my parents, to stay in the same hotel with them along with their bridesmaids and groomsmen. Now the hotel is pretty fancy, so with flights, it's going to cost us over $2,900 each. Chris's family are also staying in the hotel, which includes his parents, 2 brothers, and his nephew. Now they are well off. I don't know exactly how much they earn combined, but I know Katie is on $88,000 a year, and she is the lower earner. But about 6 months ago, Chris and Katie came to us and asked to borrow $17,000 more. They stressed it would be a loan paid over time and said the venue had increased the price. They also said that Dubai laws were different and all this other stuff. Basically, they either paid this money or they lost the lot. And well, we believe them. And I offered to loan $7,000 and my parents the other $10,000. Well, long story short, I have since found out through someone else that the $17,000 wasn't for the venue. It was for Chris's family to fly over. They saw how much it was going to be, didn't want to pay, and refused to go. I then decided to ask Katie and she confirmed. So my first question was if they were going to pay for his parents, and why not just pay for ours? I mean, I would never have expected them to pay for me, even if we couldn't afford it. I would have just wished them well and stayed at home. And her answer to this was to say, because they can afford it. She then got very defensive and said this was the fairest way she could think of doing it. It's hard enough to plan a wedding and all this other stuff. But when I asked if you genuinely thought this was the fairest way of doing it, why did you lie about what the $17,000 was used for and say it was for venue issues? Well, she couldn't answer the question. My parents are aware and they are very disappointed that they lied, but have said that they are still attending. But you know what? I have backed out. To me, it feels like my parents are being taken advantage of. And if they couldn't afford to pay for both our family and Chris's parents and his brothers and nephew, then they should not have just paid for the 4 parents or no one at all. And they especially shouldn't have lied about it. Katie and Chris keep calling and asking me to attend, saying I'm making them feel bad and ruining their day. But the whole thing just feels icky to me. I'm genuinely an open book, so be brutal with me. Am I the jerk in this situation? Should I just suck it up and go, or is this something I should stand my ground on? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, no, you are not the jerk for not going to this stupid wedding. Katie and Chris lied about what that money was going to be used for, and that in and of itself off the bat makes me never want to trust them ever again. Like they basically scammed you and your parents out of $17,000 under the assumption that they were using that money for the venue, when in reality they were lying and used it for something else. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so shady. And the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, come on, stop it, you're making us feel bad. You're ruining our special day. It's like, hold on, let's be clear here. You did not ruin anything about this day. They ruined it themselves the second they lied to you about what they were using that money for. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your sister and her husband are absolute dirtbags for the way they handled that money. And the fact that they scammed you and your parents out of $17,000, in my opinion, is unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling our brother-in-law that we needed some space, while also providing a list of troubling behavior that we've had issues with over the last year? Because right now we are so frustrated and we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my husband have been together for 13 years. years. He has a younger brother who has always liked solitude and enjoys doing anything that he wants whenever he wants. He's mentioned never wanting to have a partner or kids and thinks a life of compromise sounds awful. On principle, this is fine. March to the beat of your own drum, like that is totally okay. Unfortunately, we feel this has morphed into unkind behavior towards our child who is 6 years old. We like to spend as much time as we can with family and enjoy inviting our brother-in-law out to fun events with us, often at our own expense. Again, this is fine because we invite him to do this with us, and we have never asked my brother-in-law to pay for us to have a night out. However, over the past year, there have been several instances where my brother-in-law has caused issues with our child. At times, I've seen him antagonize and mock our child to the point of tears, and at one point, stated that his other nieces and nephews and even the cat are his favorites and not them. We've confronted him about his behavior when this happens, and always try to build our child's confidence back up after the fact. But it's been heartbreaking to hear our 6-year-old ask why my brother-in-law doesn't like him. Apart from how he treats our child, we also feel that he's been unkind to us, giving us the silent treatment for an entire night after taking a gift that he wanted in a Yankee swap. And for additional context, we invited him to a second Christmas with family and had additional gifts for him under the tree the next morning. He only started talking to us again once he found out he had other gifts. Other examples include yelling at us while playing cooperative video games because we didn't do something he wanted to in the game, and threatening to leave because we didn't want to play the game that he wanted. Most recently, he told us about a birthday plan he had that we weren't invited to, and this was a bit hurtful to hear. We told him it made us upset that we weren't invited, and he suggested making a different birthday plan so we could be included. After that, he ended up messaging us to let us know that he was going back to the original plan, and it would unfortunately be on a day I work, and it was going to be a child-free event, so neither of us could go. He extended the invite, but it still felt like a slap in the face after he knew that we were upset about being unincluded. From our perspective, extending an invitation to an event you know we cannot attend is not a real invitation. Following the birthday event, we wrote a message explaining how we felt, listing some of the examples above, and that we wanted some time to reassess our relationship. After a few days, he wrote back calling us immature, saying that we are mentally ill, that he didn't realize our relationship was transactional, and that he has ADHD, so he prefers not to be around kids. According to him, mentally stable people do not write messages like that, and we should unpack these things with a therapist rather than hashing out stuff that already happened. So truly, are we the jerks for trying to set some kind of boundary? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This really is some troubling behavior, especially him making your 6-year-old feel like garbage. In my opinion, there's very few reasons that should ever happen, and it doesn't sound like any of those are being listed, so like, what is his problem? I mean, I can understand a kid being annoying, but for you to be like, oh, I like literally everybody better than you, like that sucks, and that really is not a good precedent to set for a kid. And in my opinion, that alone is more than enough reason to be like, okay, we need to take a step back from this guy. Because obviously, this is delving into some toxic territory that in my opinion cannot be overlooked. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, because I honestly think that setting up some kind of distance will be better for everybody in the end. Am I the jerk for using the shared space way too much in the house that I rent from 2 other guys? Because right now I feel like I'm justified, but at the same time I can't help but feel that I might have done something wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in an apartment with 2 other guys, and we're all in our late 20s. We pay equal rent, and the shared spaces, namely the kitchen and the living room, are open to everybody to use. I use the common area a lot to study and work because my room is too cramped for a proper setup. I'm doing a master's degree at the moment, so I am home more than they are. The other day, one of my roommates pulled me aside and said he felt uncomfortable with me always being there. He admitted I have every right to use the space, but said it's gotten to the point where he and other roommates feel like they can't fully relax when I'm around. He suggested that I should move to my room more often and even asked if I had noticed him being annoyed about it, which I hadn't. I told him that I don't mind it at all if they use the kitchen while I'm working at the table or even sitting on the couches nearby. I'm not stopping them from cooking or making noise or using the space how they want. Then he made a comment about how he figured he could reason with me, which I felt a bit off, like he was expecting me to just agree with him. He also suggested I check with the guy who had my room last year since he managed with a small desk. But my situation is different. I have more work to do from home, and I don't think that I should have to cram into a space that doesn't work just because he thinks it would make things more comfortable for him. We've had some disagreements before about things like shared chores and personal space, so I'm wondering if this is just another one of those things or if I'm actually being inconsiderate. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I kind of think you're being the jerk here because the way you're going about this is all wrong. Your roommate is coming to you in a rational way and saying, look, we feel like you're taking up way too much space and we think think that it might be better for you to find a small desk for your room or something like that. And instead of just accommodating that and being like, oh, I'm so sorry, let me split my time a little bit more, it seems like you're almost like doubling down and being like, no, you guys can be in here just as much as I am. And to that end, I definitely think you're being the jerk, and I think you really need to be more considerate of the people you live with. Because at the moment, I really think, in my opinion, you're not thinking about your roommates nearly enough. Today, I messed up by almost fainting and embarrassing my friend at an Orange Theory gym, and I honestly feel so humiliated after that incident. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, I was invited by my good college friend to go to her local Orange Theory gym, as she had found out there was a deal for a special tryout class. I can't remember if it was free or if there was a small fee, but it would be our first time going to this gym, and we could decide whether we wanted a gym membership or not after the class. So I agreed, and she helped me sign up for the event. So I knew from past experience that I would need to eat something before going to work out at this gym to avoid any possibility of blacking out. For a bit of context, I have nearly fainted twice in my life. Once when I was in high school and had a habit of skipping lunch, which was usually okay since I would eat when I got home, but that fateful day I had fencing practice afterwards. The second time was a few years later, and the same college friend had invited me to attend a cycling class held on campus. I think I did eat, but I did not eat enough to sustain me after the intense exercise. I did persevere and finish the class before anyone noticed something might be wrong and went to eat with a friend afterwards. Both of these times, my vision was flickering between black and white while sweating profusely. Anyways, moving on to the event with Orange Theory, I woke up late, but I did make sure to eat something given my prior record. I met with my friend and we joined the class and started exercising. We used a bunch of the machines and did a lot of cardio, and the trainer was very good. My friend kept checking on me and was surprised that I was keeping up since I don't normally do much exercise. I had a strong determination and willpower that kept me going, but that was my downfall as I don't know my limits. About 30 to 40 minutes in, we moved on to doing some more chill exercises, and I sat down to recover for a bit, and that was my mistake. The very moment I stopped to catch my breath while sitting on the floor, I started seeing everything in my vision with a blood red hue, and all of the voices sounded far away with some things moving in slow motion. I was super pale and sweating profusely. I heard my friends asking if I was okay, and I also heard another girl who was in the class saying that I should lay down, and someone pushed my shoulder so that I could lay down. I kept trying to tell people around me that I was fine, but words were not escaping my mouth. Someone then called the paramedics and they came to check on me. By the time they came around, I had recovered enough to say that I did not want an ambulance. My head was blaring with sirens from the potential cost of medical bills, and I think the trainer had given me some kind of electrolyte drink as well. The girl that had told me to lie down had also said that it looked like I was having a seizure, but I'm not sure about that. The class had also been interrupted, but the good thing was that it was near the end, and we had basically tried out all of the machines and done the majority of the exercises. I felt extremely bad for inconveniencing everybody, and my friend and I left to get some food at a restaurant afterwards. And obviously, we never went back because that was truly embarrassing. Oh man, I completely understand where you're coming from because something like that's happened to me once, where I was at a gym and I did not eat or drink properly, and I very nearly passed out in the locker room. It didn't get as far as what you went through, but man, that is not a fun feeling. It is nauseating, you feel awful afterwards, and you really just want to get out of there because you are so embarrassed. So yeah, I definitely know where you're coming from because this really can be incredibly embarrassing. My boyfriend's laziness and unwillingness to get a job is ruining our lives, and I'm now honestly considering breaking up with him because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 1 year, and I'm currently in university in my last semester. We're both currently unemployed, but my boyfriend graduated from trade school about 2 years ago and hasn't gone to work ever since then. We are both supported by our parents, which is embarrassing, and I see that I'm a bit of a hypocrite, but it's not just that he doesn't work. My boyfriend doesn't like to go outside. He spends most of the day playing video games, and for the past few months, he's gotten really into League of Legends, which for those who don't know, are games played with other people online, and a round lasts like 30 minutes and sometimes up to an hour at a time. He plays for probably 6 hours a day, if not more, especially right in the morning. He does also play the drums, maybe like 2 hours a day, which is a good thing, but I think he's also depressed. I've suggested going for walks, bringing light into the room, seeing someone, but none of which is something he's willing to do. He has applied for jobs on Indeed, but he's never gotten a call back. He also won't go out to give his CVs as I have suggested. About a month ago, I was able to convince him to do the forklift course that he had been talking about, and yesterday he had the online portion. Well, he realized that it's dangerous, and so now he's not going to pursue a job in that. Around that time, I convinced him to do that. Our friend said that he's going to open a store and hire my boyfriend, which I said to my boyfriend afterwards that realistically that's not going to happen. But of course he didn't listen to me and stopped applying for jobs because of it. Yesterday, he finally finally learned that his friend might not actually hire him, and he's now very upset. In any other circumstance, I would break up with him. However, we were best friends since before we started dating, and during that time, we made an agreement to get married so that he can get a green card to live with me in the States. For reference, we both are currently living in Canada. He's Brazilian and I'm American. I feel so guilty about all of this. If I don't stay with him, he will most likely have to go back, as he hasn't been working these past few years, that once his visa is over in 2026, he won't be able to renew it. But my life is slipping away. We share a basement studio apartment, and he hates having the lights on and the windows open for light. I used to go for walks, explore the city. I would go out and chat with people, but he is so jealous that I can't even really make friends. I was invited to a party yesterday by a friend in my class, but he didn't want me to go because he's worried other guys would flirt with me, so I didn't. He is so in love with me, so sweet and gentle, and I know that he will always be loyal. And I also love him, but I'm frankly losing attraction because of all of this. Our lease is not up until September, but it's in his name. However, I don't want to leave and force his family to pay for the whole place, as that isn't fair. So honestly, I feel like I'm at such a loss at this point, and I really don't know what to do. Man, it really sounds like your boyfriend needs to get off his butt and get to work. This guy clearly doesn't get it. If he doesn't get off his butt and start working, he literally is gonna lose his visa. If that doesn't set his hair on fire to be like, okay, I've got to get to work, then I seriously just don't know what will. And I really think the original poster gets this. They understand that their boyfriend is going nowhere and their life is slipping away. So they either need to do something quick or else it's all gonna fall apart. And I don't blame you for feeling this way. So in my opinion, either your boyfriend gets to work or else this is not going to work, because you have every right to be in a secure relationship. Am I the jerk for telling my grandmother not to wear a white dress at my wedding? Because right now she is very upset and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently got engaged to my boyfriend of 2.5 years. For some context, my grandma raised me, but I've always been closer to my mom because my grandma is your stereotypical Christian conservative who, to put it bluntly, always thinks that she's right. She's gotten better over the years, but she still has a lot of growing to do in my opinion. Anyways, when I told my mom about the engagement, she was over the moon. After talking for a bit, she asked if I wanted to see some pictures from when I was a kid or before I was born. My mom is very much the sentimental type and loves to take and show pictures as needed. Now, I of course said yes. As we're flipping through the pictures, we came across one of my uncle's weddings. In it was my uncle and his now ex-wife, my dad, his brother, and my grandma. Now, I thought it was sweet until I noticed that my grandma was wearing a long white dress with a beaded top, almost like a wedding dress. Now, this struck me as odd, just because, well, wouldn't you feel weird with someone else wearing white at your wedding? A few days later, I talked to my fiance about this, and he told me that if it was a true concern, I should talk to her about it. I was already planning on doing so, but I needed that final push. So when I went to her house, I told her about the engagement itself. She's never liked my boyfriend only because he smokes, so she wasn't too thrilled about it, but she was accepting. I told her I had seen a picture of her at my uncle's wedding wearing a white dress, and how I wouldn't feel comfortable with her doing the same at mine. Well, I guess I was spot on, because she got super defensive, saying that I was selfish and inconsiderate, and that it wasn't a big deal. Personally, I wanted to be the only one wearing white because I'm paying hundreds if not thousands of dollars for a wedding dress. I would like to just stand out, even if I am the bride. It just feels kind of disrespectful. And here's where I think I might be the jerk. I got annoyed with her for calling me names and berating me about my relationship. And for reference, she was also bashing my fiance in the process. It might have been selfish for me to say, but I said something along the lines of, "It is my day, and if you can't do this one thing, then maybe you shouldn't come at all." Now, both of us were very heated in this moment, but I think I went a little too far looking back. She then told me to get out, and we haven't spoken ever since then. My fiance reassured me and said that if it was important to me, then it should have been important to her. This happened a little bit over a week ago, and I just need some outside opinions. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, no, this is so weird in my opinion. It should be a given that you don't wear white at someone else's wedding, especially not a white dress. Are you kidding me right now? That is so weird and honestly just so uncalled for. So in my opinion, I don't think you're being unreasonable at all. This is your wedding and you have every right to be the only person in a white dress. And the fact that your grandma can't understand that is honestly so stupid. Because in my opinion, you are definitely not being selfish or inconsiderate. Am I the jerk for getting angry with my friends for backing out of a trip after I paid for their tickets? Because right now I'm still very pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been planning a trip with my close friend group to visit New Orleans during carnival season. There is 5 of us in total, but for right now, I'm just gonna focus on my friends who I will name Ray and Sam. This trip has been in the works for over a year at this point, including hotel reservations, planning on where to go, etc. Obviously, this also included flight flight tickets, of which I paid for myself and my boyfriend, who is among the 5 of us going. Things started to turn south a bit a few weeks ago when Sam let us know that he didn't have the immediate funds to cover his flight ticket, and so likely would not be able to go. So collectively as a group, we offered to split the cost in order for Sam to go, with the condition that he paid us all back when he could afford it, which was fine until 3 nights ago when Ray also let me know that she hadn't booked her ticket yet. I will preface this by saying that Ray had a very valid reason for not booking, which is due to some family issues that I do not want to share on her behalf. Nevertheless, I was a bit upset that this wasn't communicated sooner. Well, trying to be a good friend, I offered to front the cost of her ticket with the stipulation that she paid me back within the next few weeks. I wasn't sweating the cost of the ticket, but it was nevertheless a very expensive ticket. Now, I thought everything was settled, to the point where I was coordinating with them on when to pick up for arrival at the airport. It is at this time that Ray informs me that she is thinking about backing out of the trip, all due to being overwhelmed with work and school-related responsibilities. This is also a sentiment which was also shared by Sam, who proceeded to question whether or not he might pull out as well. At this point, I simply couldn't take it and ended up blowing up on the both of them. And quite honestly, I don't know if I feel bad for doing so. While I completely understand that things happen and come up, I can't help but feel that my own finances and the stress of coordinating the trip on their behalf is being taken advantage of. Moreover, because the flights are so close to departure, I am unable to get a refund, so I'm still out of the money I've put down for this trip until they pay me back for it. So seriously, does anyone think I'm the jerk for being angry with them over this? My boyfriend thinks I shouldn't be so hard on them and that the trip will still be fine without them. But honestly, the stress and cost of trying to go to bat for both of them, only to be canceled on last minute, is really getting to me. What should I do? Okay, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be super pissed off. Your friends literally backed out at the last second for this stupid trip that you paid for. Like at that point, you basically threw money down the drain and it's like, wait a second, how is this fair to me? You can't get a refund and you're basically being left on the hook. So yeah, you have every right to be pissed off. I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would be livid, because if anyone's gonna take advantage of me like that, especially people that I consider a friend, then for me, all sense of trust and respect is just thrown out the window, because the way they're treating you is completely unfair. My entitled brother throws an absolute temper tantrum after he didn't get a job interview that my sister did end up getting, claiming that she's only gonna get hired because she's a woman and that the job she was applying for is clearly sexist. And I was honestly so blown away by what he said that I decided to speak up and put him in his place. Here's what happened. To start things out, this happened a couple of years ago, but no matter what, I cannot get over how entitled my brother acted. For a bit of context, my brother and older sister both applied to one of the only jobs hiring near where we lived. The job was for a cashier position, which my sister had several years experience in customer service, while my brother only worked 1 year at a factory in his life. And he quit that job because he didn't get a raise, claiming it was unfair when staff who worked there for 5 years got raises. But anyways, one day we were out shopping when my sister got a call from the job they both applied for. And it's here that we find out they wanted her in for an interview. When hearing that, my brother basically threw a fit. He told my sister that it's unfair that you got an interview and I didn't, when I put in an application a week before you did, and even called to check up on it. I reminded him that our sister has experience while he doesn't, but then he just repeated, well, I put in an application first. I should be first, not her. Then I told him that that's not how interviews work. They wait for the ones with experience so they don't have to do much training. He then got even more upset and claimed that the store is sexist and she's only getting hired because she's a woman, which honestly made me so irritated. He was acting like a child, and our dad was actually trying to back him up, telling my sister to put in a good word for your brother. Well, my sister told our dad that there's no way she can do that because even if she gets hired, it would be wrong to immediately convince them to hire our brother. While this conversation was going on, my brother kept going on and on about how the owner is male, so he must be sexist and only want females, since currently the only staff there are women. So in order to get in, he needed our sister to tell them to hire him too during her interview. At this point, I noticed my sister getting upset throughout everything, and at first she was so excited to get the interview and was hoping everyone would be happy for her, but instead they acted like she was wrong for getting the interview instead of our brother. I told my dad and brother that that was enough, and that she got the interview because she has several years of experience under her belt, while our brother had none, and that it had nothing to do with her gender, and that no, she was not going to mention our brother during her interview or after getting hired, because if they didn't contact him, clearly he didn't cut it and they just need to stop. After that, everyone went silent, but to this day, I'm honestly still annoyed by the way they treated my sister. Oh my gosh, talk about sexist. If there's anybody who's being sexist right now, it's your brother and your dad for defending him. Like seriously, seriously, what is going on right now? She didn't get that job just because she's a woman. She got that job because she's more qualified. Like, I don't know about you, but I would rather hire someone with 5 years of experience instead of somebody with no experience and only one job on their resume that they worked for 1 year. Like, seriously, what's going on right now? This is so weird. Why would you make that kind of claim just because you didn't get what you want? That is not a good look, and especially towards a family member. So yeah, I think your brother was being a complete moron, and the way he acted honestly was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I've decided to go no contact with my narcissistic parents and my brother who's considered the golden child, all because they have taken advantage of me for far too long. But now I'm worried that things might fall apart as I'm constantly on edge with what might happen in the future, because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have finally reached my breaking point with my family, and I'm planning to go no contact very soon. I just need to get this off my chest and see if anyone has ever been in a similar situation. I grew up in a family where my younger brother was always the golden child, while I was the scapegoat, the one expected to sacrifice everything, take on responsibilities beyond my years, and never complain. My parents have been financially dependent on me for years, and despite giving and giving, it's still never enough. My brother, who turns 18 this year, still has another year of high school left. I recently told my family that once he finishes, I can no longer support them. My spouse and I are planning for a second child via IVF, which is financially and emotionally draining, and I simply cannot keep providing for two families. I'm already exhausted raising my first child, and I refuse to set myself on fire to keep them warm any longer. Well, of course, my father exploded when I told this to him. He outright said he expects me to support them until their passing, and my brother until he finishes university. Mind you, we never had this agreement. This has just been an unspoken expectation placed on me because as the scapegoat, my needs and boundaries don't matter. My brother, on the other hand, gets to sit back and be coddled with zero expectations placed on him. Earlier this year, I became eligible for US citizenship, and I had suggested a solution. I could bring all three of them to the US while my brother was still under 21, making it easier for them to immigrate legally. If they moved, they could help with childcare and meal prep, which would have benefited everyone. But no, my father, who has been brainwashed by fake news, thinks that California is a nightmare and refuses to let my brother move. And because my father always gets the final say, my brother's future has basically been decided for him. He's not particularly bright or hardworking, and I genuinely don't see him thriving in a white-collar job. But of course, in my father's delusional world, trade school is beneath him. To add to the dysfunction, my father is in his late 70s. He has been retired since his 50s and had an almost mini stroke a few years ago. He's physically unable to work, yet he still clings to this outdated patriarchal control, expecting me to provide for him indefinitely. My mother, who is still in her 50s, is essentially his captive, forced into the role of his caretaker and my brother's enabler rather than being able to help me with childcare as she had promised years ago. Now, what's the real kicker to all of this? If my brother doesn't move now, a sibling visa after 21 takes 15 plus years to get. I have no interest in sponsoring him by then because I have my own family to take care of. But it's not like my parents think that far ahead. They just assume I'll always be there no matter how much I protest. At this point, I'm mentally and emotionally done. The moment my brother finishes his last high school exam, I'm cutting contact. It's sad because I know my father is going to regret his decision, and my brother, being the golden child, is completely unprepared for the real world. But that is no longer my problem. Has anyone dealt with narcissistic parents who favored a golden child while using you as their personal ATM and caretaker? How did you handle going no contact? I feel guilty, but also like a huge weight is about to be lifted. What should I do? Honestly, I completely understand why you want to cut contact with these people. They literally have been taking advantage of you for years. And I thought this was something that might have happened like in your late teenage years or something like that, but I'm stunned to find out that no, you literally have a family of your own and they're still acting like you're supposed to take care of everybody. And it's like, wait a second, this is not fair at all. How are you somehow responsible for their life and all of their finances? And the fact that they don't see this as a golden opportunity to get a visa while also working towards US citizenship, like that is crazy to me, and I just can't believe they're being this stubborn. So hopefully this all goes well in some kind of way, because the way your family's treating you, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. My parents are in financial trouble again, and they're asking me for more money even though I've given them so much already. And I'm honestly so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we had a comfortable lifestyle growing up. We were solidly upper middle class, and I never thought I would be in this position. For reference, my dad recently recently went all in on a business that ended up being a scam. The scam is not his fault, but what I can't wrap my head around is why he invested all of their liquid savings into this. He is barely able to stay afloat right now, so he's asking me and my brother to help the family get by. Not only is he nearing retirement age, but he also has one more kid to raise. He remarried later in life, and I have one half-sister who is still in middle school. She has learning disabilities, so she goes to a specialized school. There is a cheaper school for her learning disabilities in another city, but my dad can't move his business, so the family would live apart if they did that. My stepmother has been a stay-at-home mom for all of their marriage, and she's now looking for a job, but it's been tough. They're also planning to sell their nice house and downsize. This will finally give them some cash, but they're still strapped until the house sells. Now, he already asked me for money a few years ago when we were in the depths of COVID and his business was suffering. I recently learned from my stepmother that while that was true in the beginning, he also kept spending money on poorly executed business ideas that failed. I gave him close to $25,000 aggregated over those years. Now, at that time, I gave without any kind of hesitation. He was my dad, an astute businessman that I looked up to all of my life, and I had no doubt that he was good for it, but I still haven't seen a cent of that money back, and also feel like I was scammed by my own father. My brother and I split $15,000 recently so that my sister could finish out the rest of her school year. At this point, I know I should assume I will never see any of that money back. Because of that, I don't feel comfortable giving away any more. My brother is trying to convince me to split tuition fees with him again for the next school year so the family can stay together instead of moving her to another school in another city. But I said no. I feel so torn, pressured, selfish, and resentful. Honestly, just so many emotions going through me. No one is pressuring me, but I'm from a culture where family is very important, and I feel a sense of obligation even though I don't want to. I want to help my family, especially my sister who is innocent in all of this. At the same time, I don't want to keep enabling my dad and his poor business decisions. My brother wasn't involved with the first request for money, so I feel like he doesn't know what I went through over the last few years. I make six figures and I have no debt, and I've been saving and investing since my first job, so I do have the means and my family knows it, which makes this even harder. But I'm not a millionaire, and I would start to feel financially insecure if I kept giving more. This has also affected me psychologically. Even though I've been financially independent from my dad ever since college, it was always nice to have a financial safety net in the background. We've never had to worry about money, and now the safety net is gone, and it has completely messed up my psyche a lot. Most people I grew up with have had their parents help them with their down payments or even their weddings, but I now know that will not be in my future. I worry about my sister's future, and I know that's a very privileged thing to say. People had to go through the Great Recession, and most people in this country will never find financial security, but it's something that I'm still personally trying to come around to. I don't know how to navigate this, and I worry how my relationship with my dad and my brother will change going forward, and with my sister once she's older. What should I do? Honestly, it seems like this is a big ask from people that you thought you could rely on. And sure, you could keep giving them money, but it's like, okay, this honestly has got to stop. Because truly, where's the breaking point with all of this? So honestly, I don't blame you for not wanting to help out with this financial issue again, because it seems like these people always have something going on, and eventually they need to stand up on their own 2 feet and figure it out themselves. My old best friend reached out to me, and I am now unsure of how to respond, especially when I consider that she stabbed me in the back at my previous job. Here's what happened. Okay, so long story short, this girl and I had been friends since we were maybe 8 or 9 years old. There was a brief time in high school where we weren't really friends, just because we had different groups, and she liked to go out to party, whereas I didn't. But then we ended up working at the same job, and we got really close again. So close to the point where I was in her wedding party. About 7 months ago, we were talking about how our jobs just made us miserable, and I was a manager of a business and she was an assistant manager. Our boss drove us up a wall. We couldn't stand being in the same room as her because she was constantly belittling us. She was critiquing our personal lives, as well as making snide comments towards us. If we were working on something near her, she would quite literally stand over our shoulder and breathe down our neck. I mean, it was very frustrating. Our boss made comments about our weight. She would do something nice and then throw it back in our face, and she'd come in sick and then we'd all get sick, and would then claim that it wasn't her, and then be annoyed that we couldn't work. So my old friend was telling me how after December she was gone. She couldn't stand working here anymore, and she was cutting back her hours after the busy season before leaving. She had another job lined up and everything. And you know what? I didn't blame her at all. Towards the end of it, the both of us were just playing dumb games on our computer, or just straight up doing personal stuff. For me, because I went back to school, I would occasionally do schoolwork, which my boss gave me the okay for, by the way, since I was still working full time. Not to mention that it was hard hard to find time outside of work for all of my schoolwork. Now, I will admit, we shouldn't have been slacking off, and that was in for both of us. We would still do our job, but when it was finished and there wasn't much else to do, we would talk or just relax. Well, one day I called out of work, and my old friend was so mad about this because it was starting to get a lot busier. I had explained to her what happened and that I was throwing up from anxiety and didn't sleep at all, and I was literally going on 30 hours of no sleep, but she couldn't care less. I told her if it got so busy where our other coworkers couldn't handle it, to please let me know, but she never did. I also wasn't in the day after either due to a wedding, and I'd taken that day off months prior. Well, suddenly I get to work and my old friend is ignoring me, barely looking me in the eye, and I tried to talk to her, but she just would not budge. Then I got really sick with strep throat. I let everyone at work know and they were pissed off. They didn't believe me even though I had proof from the doctor and antibiotics to show that I had strep, and even though I was dying, my boss called me saying how busy it was and that she couldn't do it without me. And for the next 3 days, I went into work during the busiest time to help out. And honestly, I didn't even get a single thank you even though I felt so crappy. My old friend at this point was straight up ignoring me or giving me one-word answers to everything. Unfortunately, the strep wasn't getting better and I started to get a huge pain in my ribs that I had to go to like 3 different doctors for, meaning that I had to take more time off of work. Now, I realized the timing was the worst since it was our busiest time, but I explained everything to my boss and again, had proof from my doctor about everything. But then my boss sits me down and tells me how if I didn't want to cut back my hours and step down, then basically she would be letting me go. According to her, I called out of work to really spend time with my boyfriend, who is my now ex, and everything I told my old friend in confidence about what I didn't like about the job, she had told my boss, which are things that only she knew about. So now my old friend basically has my job. It's several months later and she is still there, and she's now best friends with my boss and all of the coworkers that she used to complain about. And my old coworker who quit confirmed that everything my boss had told me and talked to me about was my old friend whispering in her ear. Well, this friend finally messaged me back in November and she said the following: "Hey, I just wanted to text and see if you were okay. I know we haven't talked and I couldn't tell if you were mad at me or something, but I don't want you to think that I stabbed you in the back or took your job or anything like that. We'll probably be working together next week, or at least sometime soon since another person quit, and I just don't want it to be awkward or awful if you are actually mad at me." And then she messaged me this today. She said, "I feel like I know your answer based on the last time I reached out to you, but just in case if you ever want to talk things out or whatever, I'm obviously open to it. But you know what? I have not responded to either message. So here's my question. Is it even worth clearing the air? I feel very betrayed. Last I talked to her, she said, 'I understand if you hate me,' which to me is saying that she knew what she did was wrong. I will admit towards the end, with how unhappy I wasn't the most happy person in the world. I did my job and tried to mind my own business, and that's it. But she felt exactly the same as me, and we agreed on everything about our job. So seriously, should I even bother reaching out to this friend? Because at this point, I honestly don't know what to do." Okay, in my opinion, I would not waste my time. There's no way on earth I would ever trust someone like this, especially after they stabbed me in the back like that. Because let's not forget, this best friend literally stabbed you in the back. That's exactly what she did, and she's even admitting it. So for you to go back to her would just not make any sense to me. So no, I don't think you should reach out, and honestly, I think you're better off without her in your life, because she clearly was never your friend to begin with. Am I the jerk for leaving my chronically late friend to find his own way home after he is consistently never on time to anything we plan? Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old male, and I have a friend from church who's 34 who had someone total his car last August. I have been helping him with getting around as much as I can ever since then, and never once asked for gas money or anything like that. He has a problem with time management and is always late for just about everything. But me, on the other hand, is someone who is never late. There have been many instances where, due to his poor time management, he has made me late to many functions and gatherings. I truly despise people who are always late. A few times here and there is fine, but late for everything is just unacceptable in my book. Nevertheless, I look past it because he is a friend who is in need. He also rents a car every now and again to make trips out of town. I usually take him to pick up the rental car and take him back home when he returns it. Last night, he wanted me to take him home after he returned the rental, and I agreed. He tells me to meet him at this mall near my place, which we would then convoy to the rental dealer and return the car, and it would take him home afterwards. He tells me to meet him at the mall at 10 o'clock p.m., but because the mall is close by and I know he's always late, I stay home until I get a call from him at 11 o'clock p.m., which is literally 1 hour later, telling me that he is at the mall. So I drive to the mall, I'm parked where he said to meet him, and I still don't see him. So I call his phone twice and I text him 3 times, and I still get no response. I then wait 5 minutes with no response still, and then I decide to go home. As soon as I get in my house, I get a call from him asking where I'm at and that he left his phone in the rental and he went to go buy something in the mall. I then tell him that I just went home. He doesn't argue or anything like that, and he just says thanks for coming by and trying to help him out. And you know what? I did not go back to help him. I left him to find his own way home. I've given him rides countless times before, but this time I was just fed up of him never respecting my time and then not answering my calls when I've left my home at 11 o'clock p.m. to help him out. I am not turning back on this decision. I'm standing on that, but I do feel kind of bad for just ditching him like that. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your friend is being super rude by always being late, especially being an hour late to your pickup time? Like, that is unacceptable, and I don't blame you for being annoyed. So hopefully in the future he finds a new way to get a ride or figure out his car situation, because I definitely think he's taking advantage of your kindness. My mom complains the entire time we're on vacation, making my life a living nightmare and thus proving that I will never go on vacation with her ever again. Here's what happens. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 22-year-old female and I came on vacation with my parents. And it's important to note that we've done everything my mom wants the way she wants it done. Literally everything has got to go her way or she'll throw a tantrum. And you know what? I was okay with that until today. We had a long bus ride at about 5 hours to get to the hotel that we were staying at, and by the end of it, we were all tired. But when my mom gets tired, she begins with this awful childlike behavior. First thing in the morning, she complains because we use backpacks instead of a suitcase, which by the way, that was her idea. Then we had to take a boat to get to the island, and on the way to the boat, she was carrying a bag and started whining that it was too heavy, even though there was only a towel and a bottle of water inside of it. I offered to carry the bag for her, but still she just ignored me and kept complaining. Then she swore that a guy took her seat while we were on the waiting room for the boat, even though there's no designated seats, and complained for like an hour about how she didn't want to ride the same boat as him. We finally arrived to the island at 5 o'clock p.m. and the sun had finally gone down and we hadn't had anything to eat. We get to the hotel and sit down and finally eat something, and my mom doesn't even read the menu and just decides that she doesn't like it and instead just wants to go to a place that's like 20 minutes away. My dad and I are so tired and we convince her to stay, and thank God she accepted. But obviously she whined the entire time that we ate. The meat wasn't made the way that she likes it. The potatoes are cut too big. The juice is too sweet, etc. Then she decides that actually she doesn't like the hotel at all and looks for pictures of it on Google, and now she's angry because our room doesn't have the same type of floor as in the pictures. She wants to complain to the manager and demand another room. Well, by then I just lost it and I told her, aren't you tired of complaining all day? We're just staying in this hotel for one night. Suck it up. Well, she didn't even answer me when I said that, and she said to my father, I do not know what's up with her. Are you seeing this? Now, my dad never says no to my mom, so he told her to do whatever she wanted. I'm honestly so tired of this. We are all tired, but that doesn't mean we can act like total idiots. So honestly, I'm never going on a long trip with them ever again. Maybe you think I'm too grown to be coming on trips with my parents, but I'm an only child, and they like spending time with me, and I like it too. Also, it's easier to split expenses when there's 3 of us, and usually I just ignore my mom's behavior, but this time it was way too much. Oh man, I would go absolutely insane if I had to deal with something like that. In my opinion, when you go on vacation, especially for a vacation that probably costs a lot of money, that means you gotta sit down and suck it up no matter what happens. Just roll with the punches even if things go wrong. Because seriously, this is so annoying. No one wants to go on vacation just to listen to your mom complain literally the entire time on the way to the hotel. So yeah, hopefully you never deal with that again, because your mom sounds incredibly obnoxious. An entitled bully at work constantly terrorizes everybody around her, making everyone's lives miserable, especially one girl who she claims stole her man. And after watching this bullying take place over months at a time, things finally hit a breaking point where this entitled coworker was put in her place in a way that she will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife has an entitled coworker and acquaintance, and trust me, I use the term acquaintance as she does run in our friend circle, but we try to limit or avoid contact with her. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Carrie. Carrie is not her real name. Anyways, Carrie is known for bullying coworkers at work, saying that she can get people fired even though she can't, screaming at people, and at large, just general bad behavior. Her favorite thing to intimidate people with is to tell them to F around and find out, and this will be important later on. So Carrie had a friend with benefits, and this is nothing serious, it was just a guy that she would spend some quality time with and then kick out the door. Carrie is also notorious for collecting engagement rings. She would begin dating a guy to get a ring from them, get them to pay off some bill of hers, and then kick them to the curb. Again, I bring this up only as context for her character and to reinforce that this friends with benefit meant absolutely nothing to her, as she didn't even date him nor even try to get a ring from him. She used him and then kicked him to the curb. And this is right whenever someone with money showed her attention. She would also frequently talk garbage about this guy behind his back. So Carrie was on one of her short-term engagements to a guy that we will call Bill for the sake of the story. Now this was currently not someone she was seeing, as the new guy just bought her a $6,000 ring. And I'm serious, she really collected engagement rings like they were Pokemon, and paid $10,000 to get her roof fixed. So she was clearly happy with this guy and had no interest at all in Bill. Well, this is when a woman who we will call Mandy enters the picture. Mandy is another coworker of my wife and Carrie. I personally don't know her, but from what I've been told, she just got out of a 15-year marriage where she wasn't allowed to do anything and was very controlled. Carrie and Mandy are friends and drinking buddies. Carrie likes to drink a lot, and by that I mean that she drinks all the time. But nevertheless, they were on good terms. So randomly, Mandy meets Bill. Mandy doesn't know Bill's history with Carrie, nor knows that he even knows her. And wouldn't you know it, they hit it off like really well. In fact, they're getting along so well that they actually begin dating, and it eventually blossoms into a great relationship, one that's actually built on respect and love. But unfortunately, as soon as Carrie finds out about this, she loses her mind in a way that honestly I've never seen before in my life. Now again, just to reiterate, she never dated Bill, and she never wanted to date Bill, and she never had any interest in him besides spending quality time with him, if you know what I mean. In fact, she's currently engaged to another guy, but Mandy apparently took her man, and she let the world know all about it. And this is where things really started to unravel. Carrie started by going to their boss daily and asking him, "Why does that stupid idiot still work there?" And she would also loudly exclaim this on the work floor for all to hear. Also, Carrie spent a whole hour yelling and screaming at her for something that Mandy didn't even do. Carrie would also frequently bother them both when they were out and about in town. She would loudly call her every single name under the sun, and it was just all the nasty things that you could say about somebody. And she would not only say these things in their proximity, but tell anyone that would listen, or even people who would not listen. So basically, anybody around her. She would yell about how she was wronged by Mandy and Bill, and what she thought about it, and that Mandy is effing around, so she's about to find out. Well, fast forward 2 months, and Mandy and Bill are still together and extremely happy. Carrie is, not surprisingly, no longer engaged to that guy, and also, not surprisingly, has already been engaged to another guy and married after a week. It was unfortunately the 2-year anniversary of the passing of a mutual friend of all parties involved, and Carrie is using this time to take the week off of work to drink. Now, this is an entirely different can of worms, where basically she isn't nearly as close to this person who passed as she claims to be. But anyways, once work is over, everyone else goes to the bar to have a drink to celebrate the departed life. So once again, after 2 full days of drinking, Carrie sees Mandy, and she begins to go in on her again about all this stuff that is honestly just so disgusting. Well, Mandy, having finally had enough, tries to attempt to talk to Carrie in an attempt to reconcile, but Carrie is having none of this, and keeps calling her names, and proceeds to tell her that Mandy is effing around and is going to find out, and actually ends up calling her one of the worst names you can possibly think of. Well, when this happened, I'm guessing something snapped, and it was here that Mandy straight up threw a beer bottle straight at her, hitting her in the face. Imagine the cop in The Big Lebowski throwing the coffee cup, because this literally knocked Carrie on her butt. There's a slight pause, and someone I don't know who pipes up finally says, "Well, it looks like you were the one to F around and find out." And Carrie, obviously being stunned, gets up and leaves. So the next day she showed up to work with a very obvious black eye. She isn't saying anything to Mandy, but instead she's going to everyone else complaining that she was the victim. But what she just doesn't understand is that everyone's been watching her bully this poor girl for the past few months. And hopefully this is a lesson learned where Carrie will no longer F around and find out what will happen if she pushes someone too far. Wow, this is uncalled for. Carrie sounds like a horrible person. Like seriously, she goes out of her way to mess with other guys just so she can collect engagement rings and somehow get them to pay for her bills. Not to mention that she's trying to have like, I don't know, some kind of weird connection with like a friends with benefit, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? You don't like Bill and you're not even interested in him. So the fact that she's trying to be like, wow, Mandy stole my man, she's obviously just trying to start drama for the sake of starting it. So good for Mandy for standing up for herself and literally knocking this chick on her butt, because in my opinion, Carrie's actions absolutely deserve to be punished. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled gas company refuses to find another technician to replace the one that called called in sick. So I decided to get some petty revenge, reminding them of the law and thus forcing them to give me exactly what I want. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm not sure if this counts as revenge, but I definitely think it was petty. I moved to a new place and I had to get the gas hooked up. So I scheduled an appointment with a gas company technician at 10 o'clock in the morning, while also paying the deposit. At 9:30, I'm at the gym near my house when I get a phone call that the technician is sick and can't make it. I say to them, well, can't you send somebody else? And the representative on the other end said, that's impossible. We have nobody else. I said to them, but you are literally canceling 30 minutes before my appointment. The representative then gives me an attitude. They say to me, haven't you ever been sick? These things happen. We have to reschedule. I then responded by saying I had to free my schedule for this meeting. I'm not mad that the technician is sick. I'm mad that you don't have a backup. The representative then said to me, then free up another day. Today will be impossible. Well, I Googled laws in my country about customer rights, and it turns out they owe me the equivalent of $200 for bailing on the meeting. So I called the call center back. I asked if they were sure that they couldn't send me somebody, and now the pissed off lady repeated that it was impossible. So I said to her, okay, so how would you like to send me the $200? The representative then sounded confused and said, come again? I then sent her the link to the law on the government website. The representative then said, we will send someone over as scheduled. Now this is where I got really petty. I said to her, are you sure? You said that your guy was sick and would not want to get him out of bed. The representative then said, sir, the technician will arrive at the scheduled time. I then said to him, well, it's just that you said it was impossible. I wouldn't want to break the laws of physics. But the representative repeated themselves again, saying that the technician will arrive at the scheduled time. So I responded by saying, I'm just astonished at how fixable it was when a few minutes ago you said it was impossible. And while the representative said the same thing again, I responded by saying, yes, but what changed? Other than you not wanting to pay out compensations? Because it would seem to me as a layman that maybe it's possible, but you just didn't feel like doing your job until you found out it would cost you money. I kept this up for another 10 minutes, and I went home in time to get my gas connected. Now I'm moving to an entirely different building 3 buildings down to switch gas companies simply out of spite, and so far it's going really well. I love this story because that representative changed their tune immediately. Once they realized the customer knew the laws and was like, oh wait, no, you can't do this. They suddenly switched it up and realized, oh wait, I have to do my job now. And it's like, my God, if you had just done your job in the first place, none of this would have gone wrong. So yes, this gas company is so stupid, and the fact that they wouldn't just figure this out immediately, in my opinion, is so uncalled for. An entitled Karen demands that I call the police, all because I was parking my car in a handicapped spot. But despite the fact that I was legally parking there, this entitled Karen was refusing to hear me out. Here's what happened. So today, I drove my mother to an appointment. We both qualify for handicap parking, and I do have handicap plates. I walk my mother into the office where she has an appointment, and there's almost no seating. So I tell her that I'll wait outside, since I don't need to be in the appointment with her. It's a really nice day, so I sit on a concrete retaining wall about 15 feet from my car and read on my phone. After about 20 minutes, I notice a woman about my age has pulled up behind my car and is just looking at it. After a couple of minutes, she spots me. She comes over and demands that I let her use my phone. I asked her why, and she said her phone wasn't working, and she wanted to report someone for illegally using a handicap spot. I asked her where that car was, since you could see the little wheelchair on my plate from where we were, and there was no other handicap spot in view. She then points at my car. I then asked what made it an illegal park job, and her response was to say that this is where she would always park. Well, I told her that was my car. It wasn't moving until my passenger came out, and it was legally parked. She then stomped off towards my car, so I just started recording her. Then, when she reared back to kick the car, I yelled out that she was on camera, and I had her plate number if she tried to damage my car. But then, right at that moment, she ran off, she got in her car and drove away. About 30 minutes later, a city cop came by, stopped, looked at my car, and then drove off. So I assumed she found a working phone somewhere and reported me for something that I wasn't doing wrong. Man, this is a classic case of people literally not minding their own business. Like, obviously, there's a handicap parking pass in your window, and the fact that this lady's trying to be like, well, I always park there, so if you're parking there, that must mean that this is illegal and you're not allowed to do that. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? That is so weird and annoying. So honestly, I don't blame you for recording her because that lady was clearly trying to like damage your car. And the fact that she probably called the cops anyways is just a huge waste of time for literally everybody involved. Am I the jerk for asking my friends to stop scheduling workplace events at the restaurant I work at? Because right now it's making everything awkward and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend, who we will call Camilla, work at the same place. We have been acquaintances for a long time, but only got closer when I got hired in the start of last year. She is essentially my boss's assistant. Besides working here, I took a part-time job in a restaurant restaurant where I work Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. Well, my boss likes to host dinners for our whole office at least once a month, or when we finish a really big project. Usually, I can't make it, so I don't pay a lot of attention to discussions about it. But at the start of the year, I realized that the dinner for the opening of the year was going to take place at the restaurant I worked at. I talked with Camilla and she said she didn't realize, but also that it couldn't be changed since the reservations were already made. Now that dinner was awkward for me since my coworkers kept asking me to sit and eat with them, and they were kind of giving me weird looks, almost as if they pitied me in some kind of way, to be completely honest. They left a huge tip, which was kind of cool, but also a bit embarrassing. Afterwards, everyone started treating me differently, and my supervisor even pulled me aside to ask if everything was alright. They had good intentions, but it was genuinely annoying for me, especially since I don't talk much about my personal life at work. The February dinner was set for the restaurant I worked at again. I asked Camilla about it, and she just said that the boss really liked the place and there was nothing that she could do. So I decided to trade with one of the workers in the restaurant that works in the back, just to try and avoid the awkwardness from before. I was not even 1 hour into my shift when the owner came in and informed me that I had to trade again because table 4, you know, the one with all of my coworkers, asked for me specifically. When I switched, Camilla made a joke about me hiding from them and everything was awkward all over again. After that, I sent a text message to Camilla asking if she would please stop scheduling the dinners here. Well, she said that she couldn't and we had a huge argument about it. I said that she was being a bad friend and she just said that I should quit one of the jobs if I was so embarrassed of people from one workplace meeting me at the other. She also called me poor, but she apologized for that. So honestly, am I the jerk here? I am obviously young, so I don't know if I'm being immature, but honestly, Camilla is upset with me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, but I also think Camilla's doing this on purpose. Like seriously, this kind of seems targeted in my opinion, and I think she's absolutely doing this because she doesn't like you. Like Camilla is not your friend in the slightest. If she was your friend, she wouldn't be trying to like, I don't know, make you look bad. Like now you're getting treated differently at work. You literally are having people pull you aside and be like, is everything okay? When in reality, having a second job is not that unusual. But for some reason, these idiots are trying to be like, oh wow, you're on hard times. And they wouldn't even be thinking that if Camilla wasn't like trying to actively ruin your reputation. So no, you're not the jerk for trying to set a boundary, but in my opinion, I would go above her head if you really don't want this scheduled like this ever again. I would go to my boss directly and explain my case. I would say that I feel embarrassed by people coming to my other job and that it all makes me feel really awkward, while also explaining that Camilla is almost doing this on purpose while calling you poor in the process, because this situation is absolutely avoidable and it seems like Camilla's doing all of this on purpose. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance that her sister can't stay with us going forward after she has literally caused such a scene in every aspect of our life? Because right now I feel like everything's falling apart and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my fiance's mother and sister are devout Hindus while I'm a Christian. Their family is very dysfunctional. The parents are separated but live in the same house. The sister resents their father, constantly fights with him, and refuses to move out despite owning a house that he bought her. She stays home to avoid spending money, saving 95% of her income while their mother enables her. The real trouble started when my fiance, her mother, and sister visited the temple twice. The first time, a temple person told them that I would end up with another woman, and they believed it blindly. The second time, this same person claimed that I was gay. Afterwards, they called my mother, saying they wanted to sell everything and get their money back. Following this, I asked my fiance to limit their visits to our place. They were coming over 3 to 4 times a week, which was really excessive. I value my privacy and I want time alone with my fiance. Then came my birthday party. My fiance's mother invited their father, hoping to try and mend things over. During the dinner, he made a joke and the sister lost it. She then stormed out, went home, and destroyed his garden. He said he was going to call the cops, and honestly, I don't blame him. She has serious anger issues. The next week, their mother left for an overseas trip, leaving the sister home alone. She initially asked if she could work from our place, which I suspected was an excuse to stay over. And sure enough, when the time came, she guilt-tripped my fiance into letting her stay for a full week. Now at that point, I put my foot down. I told my fiance that her sister couldn't stay. After what she pulled with the temple visits and her general behavior, I didn't want her in my home. I also like my space. I walk around in my boxers, I unwind, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable in my own house. My parents also agreed that she shouldn't stay with us when she has her own home. A few weeks later, my fiance finally told her sister that she couldn't stay over anymore. And when she said that, she completely lost it, texting my mom to keep her nose out of our business and telling me to keep the heck away from my dog. And for reference, they have a Jack Russell Terrier that I love. Now, she's acting like a child and refuses to attend our wedding despite being the maid maid of honor. She also keeps messaging my fiance, though I don't know what she's saying. My fiance now wants me to apologize, but I don't feel that I did anything wrong. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this is crazy because these kind of problems are not gonna go away anytime soon. For starters, you're not the jerk for saying, hey, you can't stay here anymore, but also I think you probably need to realize that these problems with your fiance's family are literally gonna come up all the time. It's not gonna stop overnight, and it's definitely not gonna be fixed just because you're getting married. Like, you're going into a family that sounds incredibly dysfunctional, and I'm not saying don't marry your fiance, like that's your decision, but you've got to weigh the pros and cons here. And in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be very hesitant to move forward. Like, this really sounds insane across the board. Like, there's really no excuse for this level of dysfunctionality, and the fact that they're acting like this constantly is just a huge red flag. So hopefully all of this gets figured out sooner than later, because this new family sounds like a nightmare to deal with. And in my opinion, I think you deserve way better than this. Am I the jerk for complaining to my fiance about the mouth noises he makes when he eats? Because right now he's saying that I am the jerk, and I honestly am not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I have been living together for almost 2 years. In the last month or so, my fiance has adopted this habit of attempting to clean his teeth after eating by making the sucking noise constantly. It is such a disgusting noise, and I can't stand listening to it. For a bit of context, growing up, I grew up with my grandfather that ate with his mouth open and my grandmother who had issues with her throat. Because of this, for most of my life, I was subject to listen to some pretty gross noises while they ate. As an adult, I don't want to be subjected to the same experience if I don't have to. I've brought it to my fiance's attention several times, and every time he acknowledges it and says that he will try to stop, he just feels like there's something in his teeth. I have suggested floss, toothpicks, those portable toothbrushes, but nothing has worked, and he still continues to do it. Well, I don't see why I have to force myself to listen to him doing that, so after we eat, I've made it a point to get up and go sit in a different area of the house for 5 minutes. We got into an argument about it, and he's calling me a jerk because I shouldn't be getting upset about something he can't help. Like I said, I've already told him several times that I'm not going to be subjected myself to listening to him do that. If he's not going to make a more conscious effort to not do it, then I'm going to remove myself from situations where I might have to listen to him do that. I'm not even trying to make him feel bad or give him this ultimatum, but I don't understand why I need to force myself to listen to him do something that genuinely makes my skin crawl just to make him feel better. It's also important to note, it's not like he does this just after big meals. He does this multiple times a day after eating pretty much anything. What should I do? Okay, I don't think you're the jerk at all. The fact that your fiance is saying that this is something he can't help and that it's something he just does, in my opinion, proves that he's actually the jerk and that you're not. Like, seriously, this guy easily could start fixing this behavior if he really wanted to. And what you're asking for is not that big of a deal. It just sounds like your fiance's being stubborn and he doesn't want to change, and so now he's flipping this on its head towards you as if you're the one with the problem. So no, you're definitely not the jerk because the way he's acting is absolutely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not giving my new neighbor any surveillance footage over the last 2 weeks of an incident that may or may not have happened on their property? And despite the fact that I've explained to them multiple times that my cameras do not point at their property at all, they literally are ignoring everything I'm saying and instead are demanding that I give over the footage that they want. Here's what happened. So my neighbor from a few doors down purchased the house next door to me and is actively renovating it. They have been pretty respectful, and so have I. I recently gave the owner my phone number after I saw a pretty extensive water leak from their renovation flowing into my driveway to the street. Now, this is not a big deal, but obviously they would want to get that turned off immediately and repaired. I'm in construction and real estate and recently had a similar leak from my house. So, being neighborly, I texted them a link to the part they needed to fix the specific issue. Flash forward a month later, and this neighbor is texting me asking if I have surveillance footage of their renovation property, especially the outdoor breaker boxes. They referenced a 2-week period that a now fired contractor allegedly flipped a breaker that they weren't supposed to, which resulted in the pool pump coming on and staying on, leading to it running dry and burning out. Well, I immediately let them know that my surveillance system is not in any way aimed at their house, and I wouldn't have a view of that. They then asked again in pretty much the same words as if I hadn't already replied. Now, I did not feel so inclined to send them all sorts of camera screenshots that were none of their business, but I did send them two, where her property line was just in the edge of the screen. Well, they replied with a zoom portion of one of the pictures, maybe equating to less than 1% of the entire view, circling and drawing arrows all over it, as well as sending messages that said, "This is the breaker box, please send me pictures." Now, mind you, I already said no twice at this point. I have not replied again since the last text message, but for those not understanding the request, there is no quick way to watch 2 weeks of surveillance footage of a tiny zoomed-in area waiting for any type of movement. Your eyes would have had to be on the screen the entire time. This is very different than watching for something stolen or broken, where you can easily just narrow it down. This is not a reasonable request, even from a neighbor on friendly terms, much less from a random acquaintance that I've spoken to maybe 5 times. So am I the jerk for not replying again, not saying no a third time, not explaining why, or not even being willing to watch 2 weeks of video footage just to look for a possible 60-second period of an extreme close-up? Because right now I'm honestly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, you are not the jerk. They're asking way too much. Like seriously, your cameras are not pointed at their property. It's only monitoring your property, and that's all it should be looking at. So the fact that these people are trying to be like, review 2 weeks of footage please, and give it to us as soon as possible. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's weird. And if they really are that concerned about their property, then guess what? They can put up some kind of camera system and figure it out themselves. The fact that you're even being put on the spot like this is so obnoxious, because in my opinion, your neighbors are being super weird. And if they really want to protect that property, then they seriously need to be way more proactive. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.